Welcome to another episode of By the Numbers. I'm your host, Richard Lewis. Joining me as he always does, it's the esports historian, Duncan Thorin Shields. We've got Sammy B, the producer, lurking in the background. And we're going to be talking today mostly about the recent Blast event that happened in Denmark. First, before we get into it all, though, some minor pleasantries. Duncan, how are you doing? You've had some time off lately, I noticed.
Yeah, in general. I mean, look, I still put out some content, but not at my usual sort of pace. I haven't done as many of the solo videos. I've noticed I haven't done any writing at all. So I'm probably just going to get back into it now. To me, I don't care what anyone says. Christmas doesn't start for like 2 weeks at least. Come on, grow the fuck up. So to me, just put in a couple of good weeks of work, then enjoy the holiday.
Well, yeah, whereas I do believe Christmas starts immediately as soon as you get into December, and I will be spending all my time doing as little as possible and just eating and drinking.
That, that's my problem. So yeah. I can't continue it. I've got to like whip myself in a shape to then get back out of shape.
Yeah, no, I know the pattern. So look, we've got lots of topics to hit today. Some controversial ones, of course. I feel like history
just from fucking years gone by, and it's like we're just literally like fucking resurrecting the greatest hits of the show. Remember Udence in 2018? That's coming back again. Remember Astralis telling all them lies? That's back again. Everything's back again. Everything old is new again.
The Peacemaker Productions.
He's even been in a team a very brief amount of time, and people have bizarrely been kicked, and then he's been kicked himself. So again, like. Any new shit happened? Nah.
Actually, I thought for an experiment we should have done where we got the old episodes where these things happened, edited together a supercut, put it out, and see if anyone noticed. But of course they would probably because we look younger because it was like 5 years ago or something. But whatever. Anyway, shout out to the sponsors. Of course, NordVPN. Our VPN sponsor. If you want to get a VPN, you want to get 74% off a said VPN, go to nordvpn.com/RLS. They've been sponsoring us for ages now. Super happy to have them on board. And of course, Steel Series, you will notice, are still with us. You can go to ! Steel Series. Follow that link. Use my name with no space, Richard Lewis. 10% off anything in the store all throughout December. So highly recommended if you want to pick up some stuff for Christmas. Right then, go on. Let's just start with the crowd then. Let's just tackle that one head on. Obviously, for those that didn't watch the event, I'll give you a brief summary, and then I will let Duncan unload, and Sam will have his special timestamp pen ready to go. But basically, yeah, there was an event in Odense in Denmark. We've had several ones there down, in Copenhagen, but similar to the one that happened in Odense. We've had several events in Denmark now where this has been a factor, where basically Danish crowds and their sort of blind fealty that they pay to Astralis has sort of factored into a tournament. And during Blast Finals, there were a number of clips. I've sort of dug some out and we'll take a look at it, where the crowd sort of went way over the line of what would just be expected crowd noise, to the point where you literally had hundreds of people baying, at Astralis players. Oh, they're behind you, watch out for the flank. Shoot through a smoke. And it wasn't like a few isolated incidents. This happened the entire time Astralis were playing. And this was especially terrible optics, because apart from the fact that obviously massively violates competitive integrity, Blast did absolutely nothing to address it, something I'll give some insight to in a moment. But the optics are sort of compounded because the rest of the crowd, I mean, a good 70%, I would say, based on what I saw, didn't give a fuck about any of the other teams in attendance, didn't cheer for any of their epic moments or their plays. Just basically seemed to be, we're here to see Astralis play, and if anyone else is playing, we're going to either leave or just sit there in absolute silence. So really set back the perceptions about Danish crowds some distance. The Odense thing was, like you say, 2018, similar stuff, but nowhere near as bad as this. And I'll even go so far as to say this is probably the all-time worst crowd reaction, that I've ever seen in CSGO.
Yes, the only thing I can even compare it to, and by the way, if this is what you're being compared to, you're already way out of pocket. The only comparison would be the like World Cyber Games type events they used to have in China, where famously the Chinese crowd would leave if
Yeah.
the Chinese player lost, or would give zero reaction if the Chinese player wasn't in the final or wasn't play or lost the game, etc. So that's the only comparison I can even think of. And by the way, why I say that that's an extreme example is that's pure nationalism, you idiots. Those are people who only care about the player along the lines of strict nationalism. Is he Chinese? Yes, then I will cheer for him. Otherwise, it could be literally the best player in the world and we're not going to give you anything. Now, the problem is, right, that is what I would contrast it with. This is, as you say there, this is what needs to be emphasized at the beginning. This isn't actually, despite the joke, an update of the Uden segment. This is worse. This is way worse because even the context is different. Like, we'll start with Blast, right? In fact, let's start with Blast and the people on the broadcast. Except for Machine, and I did notice a little bit of discomfort from some of the people on the desk, but they didn't explicitly call it out as much. Sponge did it a little bit. I would say it's the other way. It's even worse, Richard. It's not just that Blast did nothing about it, because they didn't, by the way. I noticed even in the final, people were still actively, like, well, not in the final, I guess, because there's no Danish teams. Even in, like, the lower bracket matches, after people had pointed out, there was still blatant cheating going on, and nothing was being done by it with Blast. I'd go the other way. I would say they even not only didn't address how bad it was, they bigged it up. They did a Carmack and ESL, because if you read any of the socials of Blast, it was about what an incredible crowd it was and how unforgettable this was. And even talent were all like, this is a day I'll never forget in my life. The day you just sat by while people cheated. What are you talking about? It's like I get put in this position, Richard, which I hate, where like I'm the arsehole because like I'm the one pointing out you're actually ruining the whole fucking event. The entire event from top to bottom is being ruined by this crowd behavior, which is so fucking solvable in an instant. If not that day, that you can solve for the next event. Because this went a full spectrum. Like, first of all, there's a whole side thing we could go into about how people tried to gaslight a 20-year veteran of Counterstrike. I have played Counterstrike since Beta 1, and I have watched every major LAN. They tried to gaslight me that I'm making it up, that this is different from all the other LANs ever held. That this is every LAN ever held. This is what they were all like, Richard. So we were hearing all these nonsense comparisons. Like, you think Cloud9 didn't win the major because they didn't fucking cheat, did they, you idiot? They didn't literally have a round in the final when FaZe was up 15-11 where, like, they just call a mad flank that someone from FaZe is doing and they win the tournament off it, you fucking moron. What happens is, at giant crowds like in America, you have a few idiots who hold up signs and you have people who make generic noise. And I will stress, generic noise. The key difference for me on this one is I've never seen as extreme examples of cheating like this. Like, not only did they literally only cheer for Danish players, and by the way, that's only when it was like Heroic plays Team Liquid, about the most extreme enemy you could have. They'll cheer for Heroic then a bit, right? When Carrigan just appeared on stage, had the audacity to just appear on stage, he was booed as if he was a villain. He is the fucking guy who started Astralis. You cretins. You can't even comprehend that. That would be like booing Messi when he comes back to fucking Barcelona now. It's like, what are you doing? Like, I get the idea you might boo him in a playful way. You wouldn't just literally be like, and here, of course, it's not a pantomime, you know. It's not fucking Punch and Judy. Because, by the way, I have no problem with people booing or cheering. They can do whichever they want. It's when it was done in a directed way like this. So, for example, not only did they boo legends like Carrigan and Shocks for checks notes, standing on stage being interviewed, hadn't even done anything in the game yet, no reason yet to boo them. Not only did they boo them, but when Astralis played Heroic, right, Richard, in my entire time covering esports, I've never seen a more disgraceful set of crowd behavior than this. They actively cheated against Heroic. They booed Heroic. By the way, that doesn't even make sense. They're the best Danish team, you fucking morons. They're even mad likeable. There's not even, like a moron's going to suggest, the cheating angle. There is nobody in Heroic who has cheated. Spoiler, the coach of Astralis at that tournament cheated in that very same thing. So the whole thing from top to bottom was pure cancer. And here's the other thing. I've heard crowds who make noise when things are happening. We all know that is a thing if you make it general. But they make that noise for everyone. And that is a fact. If they play, if two of the biggest teams in the world played, Richard, like in a random event in America, Germany, where they might make noise when someone flanks, but they'll do it for both teams if someone flanks. In this event, they would actively make noise, like you said, not just like saying, he's behind idea, but also literally shouting the Danish word for shoot when people were going through smoke grades on your screen. Not only did they do that, but they actively gave nothing to Heroic. So Heroic would even win a banger round and get fuck all crowd. Yeah, I've never seen this happen in my life, Richard. Like, you can talk about the only comparison, and this is the irony of it all. The only comparison I can give would maybe be like those really legendary like NFL stadiums where you'll get nothing from them and the whole crowd. But here's what doesn't make sense about that, and this is the key point I want to make. This isn't an Astralis home game, you stupid fucking fans. People were going to me, Richard, well, what do you expect? It's an event in Denmark. I don't expect them to actively cheat as though this was an Astralis home game and everyone on the Blast circuit gets a home game in their arena. That is by definition unfair. You're agreeing with me if you say that's what would happen. Like, in that scenario, I'm not exaggerating. I said it on Twitter and I mean it. I have personally called for Denmark to be one of the locations like Sweden that gets a major for years. I think,
sure.
Objectively, they would be on my top 5 countries to not get a major on the basis of this behaviour. Because it wouldn't be a major, it would just be an Astralis home game, apparently. So I can't be doing this. And the last thing I'll say is this. I also think this is so whack for whatever esports is in Denmark. Because esports in Denmark isn't a bunch of people who like CSGO, a bunch of people who like to watch tournaments. It's apparently just the cult of Nicola Nyham's Astralis clan, where you're just a team who's just, like, literally, the joke is they don't even have the same players and you're still wearing the shirt going, boo, Carrigan. Oh, Lucky, yeah. It's like, what is this? This is whack. This is worse than fucking wrestling. At least they know it's fake in wrestling.
Yeah, some do. But yeah, look, I mean, here's the thing with this. And by the way, Sam, if you want to play, there's 2 clips I put in the chat. One called "The Crowd Cheating is above a joke at this point," and the other is called "Danish Crowd Trying to Cheat." You just want to play them while I'm talking, do the audio mixing. That'll be fine. So it'll show examples of what Duncan's talking about. But yeah, so I can give it a little bit of insight, first of all, into why this is the worst crowd in CSGO history. Because obviously I worked at a few leagues and a few tournaments, in particular E-League, where there is this narrative push that Cloud9 won because of the crowd. So let me give you a little bit of insight into how we used to deal with this at E-League. Once, in the regular E-League season, I believe in a show that Duncan was there for, so he can attest to this, Cloud9 were playing. It was a moment where I think Skadoodle was scoped, and someone in the crowd shouted something like "to the left" or just something ridiculous like that. Now, I don't think Skadoodle heard. It didn't impact on the game, but that person was told if they said anything again that was even remotely untoward, they would be thrown out.
By the way, but just for clarity, before every E-League broadcast when I was there, so for the whole year of 2016, there was a woman whose job was to, before the broadcast went live, give a speech along the lines of what she's talking about now, and just say, look, we want you to get excited and we want you to cheer, but please do not call out positions, do not give away anything in the game, maintain the competitive integrity, and if you don't, we might have to ask you to leave. That used to be said before every showing. So the idea that this LAN is like solving the problem after the fact, after we point out, which they weren't even, but even then that's a discourse. Like, why is that not this? Like, this should be the standard, in my opinion, at every event. Like, the joke is this, Richard. When you hire someone, so they didn't hire OG or whatever, they hired, like, obviously Machine, and then I forget the name of the Portuguese guy. Those guys, literally, you should be having them every day. Remind the crowd, by the here's what we like you to do, here's what we don't like you to do. Remind them it's a different game. It's not like football. There's a fog of war, essentially. There isn't literally, but it's better terminology to use. There is information that cannot be known by the opposing players. This isn't like a soccer match where you can say, you'd say all that, but they don't. You notice they don't do it at events.
Yeah.
Even ESL didn't do it.
And like I say, it was part of the pre-show ritual in the regular season, because we had a great floor manager at E-League. And basically, when the crowd come in, you would spend some time getting the crowd hyped. And obviously, the understanding is hype can lead to over-exuberance. So you temper that just before the games go live. And like Duncan says, we did that religiously every show. Then by the time we get to Boston, obviously, we had this miracle run from Cloud9 where they go all the way through to win it. Now, the only crowd, by the way, that discernibly shouted out where people were or anything like that were the people that were cheering for SK Gaming, cheering for the Brazilian fans.
Understandably.
And we dealt with that. We dealt with that at the time where they were confronted and told, like, you can't do that. To let you know how deep it went in terms of trying to preserve competitive integrity within a stadium, we had 2 people in the production who were looking through the crowd for signs to see if there was anything that like go A, go B, apps A, B, any flipping signs that could be done like this. And they would be in my ear between the desk segments. And again, you can check with like Yanko, Moses, Sean Guess, people who absolutely wouldn't lie about this. Because I know everyone seems to think my integrity is somehow impugnable for reasons I don't know. But, you know, and they would ask me on my monitor on the desk, does that look like a sign that's dodgy or whatever? And we saw a few signs where I said, yeah, you should probably go over and just check it out. You know, if you can, you got the time. It was lockdown, right? And so the problem you've got here is, before we even talk about how absurd the crowd behavior is, and we'll also talk a little bit about some of the nice little hypocrisy I've noticed in terms of calling it out. Blast, this is your event. Like, imagine doing all this work to have the best production right now in the game. Imagine being able to just do a direct compare and contrast to PGL, which, by the way, just as another point, that I hope everyone now realizes just how shitty a major you got served up, having seen what Blast did with no tech problems, perfect sound mixing, barely any delays, you know, and fantastic games. You know, at the end of the day, Blast have shown that they're hands down the best in the game when it comes to the production right now in CSGO, in my opinion. But the problem you've got, it's all for nothing if the games are compromised. It's all for nothing. It's like Duncan says, it may as well be wrestling. So why has no one from Blast got on the fucking loudspeaker or gone out into the crowd and told people, you are going to be ejected if you keep doing this? You are, and this is the problem. Esports in general panders to the fans so much, it will not even do what is standard operating procedure in any other sporting event. We've told that story before about how in Cologne, someone threw a full can of beer at Cold Zera's mother. That person should have been prosecuted.
From ever coming to the event again.
Let alone just allowed to behave like that.
Yes.
That's beyond a joke. We've had people throw fucking chocolate bars and food at commentators in the middle of a job. We've had people at DreamHacks in London, you can go and get the clip of me doing it, try and get onto the stage and hold up a sign. We had DreamHack Leipzig, where somebody literally ran towards Yanko. Could have had a knife, could have had anything. And yet these people never get ejected. I think maybe in that Leipzig one, the guy did, right? This is outrageous. This has been a powder keg for ages. We spend so much time sucking off the fans because they come and they make a little bit of noise and it makes our events look good. And obviously ticket sales is a revenue stream that we don't actually do what you would do at a football game. If this was happening, like if an equivalent behavior was happening at a sporting event, you would be thrown out. It wouldn't matter if they had to throw everybody out. They would throw you out. You would be gone, and likely you would have your ability to go to these games in future revoked.
Yes.
But the fact that you haven't even warned the crowd, the fact that once again in esports, it's not the big tournament organizer that has to carry the can. Oh, it's the talent. You're freelance workers. How interesting. Why am I saying this is happening again? You may remember when League of Legends had to cancel that Worlds event, and who did they send out? Not Mark fucking Merrill, sat on his dragon hoard of gold, right? And fucking HR complaints, right? No, they sent out DJ Wheat. It's always the freelancers that have to talk about the elephant in the room, and you always end up looking like a cunt. So I'll talk about the machine thing in just a bit, but why have Blast not even addressed this? That's what I can't understand. It was a problem on day one. It was a problem on day two. It was a problem right the way through, even to the point where Apex is screaming, you fucking bastards, for the crowd basically saying he was on a flank, losing his mind over it. Again, we got a clip of that, which we can probably play. But, you know, why haven't Blast said anything? And you know why they haven't said anything? Because people will forget. They know it's a truism that you all actually don't care. No one in CSGO cares.
Like I said, people will just remember how brilliant the atmosphere was for that Astralis game. People will remember this is a good thing, Richard. Dude, what you said there about pandering, this is how depressing this scenario is, right? Cadian, who, by the way, did completely play himself. Like, he had the audacity in that interview to go, I think it's about 40, 60, you know, like, yeah, you'll see a few heroic jerseys, you fucking idiot. You may as well, the joke is you did your fallen bad librarian impression, but it was your home country, you fucking moron. But if that wasn't bad enough, right? Dude, the difference is he himself, you can go look at this up. He himself on Instagram did a tweet that was like, thank you so much for this to the crowd. Like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? They're the ones who fucked you.
Yeah.
Why would you thank them? Oh, I can't handle people who cook themselves, Richard. It's the worst of all.
You know why? Because they all think they'll win them over.
I know.
You don't understand what you're dealing with, unfortunately, is...
Why, by the way, Apex and Vitality are G's, because they knew, fuck this crowd, right?
Yeah.
Fuck them. Yeah, give them that. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. I love that shit.
No, but that's how you have to do it.
Yes.
And so let's talk about the other aspect to this. When Machine called them out, and by the way, I know people might think that this was like some sort of thing that he might have had planned or whatever. He was
the moment to me.
He was legitimately angry, and knowing Alex, and I put it this way. That wasn't something where it was like a nice, calm, like, witty, maybe pre-written comeback. If X happens, I will say why. He was just legitimately disgusted. Now, what I thought was interesting was everyone who wasn't an Astralis fan, and even some Astralis fans, to be fair to them on the subreddit, all reacted by saying, oh, it's brilliant. It's brilliant that Alex has called them out. It's fantastic that he called them all freaks and told them that they should cheer for Counterstrike. It's brilliant that Sponge says, listen, if you want to go home now that Astralis have been knocked out, we've got your money, and we only want Counter-Strike fans in the building. By the way, Straight Fire Line absolutely wrecked them all, just exposed them for what they are. But I can't help but notice that, right, if Duncan on a broadcast had said, you're all freaks, why aren't you cheering for the crowd? Like, here's how I know. All those same people will go, oh, it's massively unprofessional what Duncan's done. Just let the crowd have fun, man. Hey, they've paid for the ticket. If they want to cheat, they can cheat. Right? They would say, do you know how I know we would do all that? Because when we said Heroic have maybe over-celebrated a little bit on that one thing, it was a drama for 2 days with people threatening to kill me and demand I was pulled off the broadcast. That I had no right hosting it because I'd gone too far by saying that. Then, when the major was over, and we just go back to normal. Oh, Richard and Duncan aren't on the broadcast. So, yeah, actually, Heroic do over-celebrate. Not very likeable as a team, are they? That Cadian really takes it too far. So, you people are just fucking hypocrites. If someone popular says something, you completely agree with it. If somebody unpopular says it, you completely disagree with it, regardless of the substance. You've always been like that, by the way, CSGO community. You are fucking degenerate losers with no principles whatsoever. And this is why this shit still happens. From 2018, when we brought it up, you were like, well, it's not great, but it's a little bit overplayed. It's happening again. It will continue to happen over and over and over again, because the only people who actually point this behavior out and say something has to be done about it just so happen to be these mad iconoclastic people. Do you know why? Because we don't rely on Blast for a paycheck. I'll never rely on Blast for a paycheck. I can say what the fuck I want about Blast and how shittily they handled this crowd element of what was otherwise a fantastic event. This should be one of the best events of all time. We should be talking in only glowing terms about the game, about the crowd, about how it's a sign of things to come for CS, and it's about... Nah, I can't say that. The crowd issue completely overshadowed this event. Completely. And it could have been dealt with on day one. As soon as you know which way the wind's blowing, you get out ahead of it. Blast didn't do that because they wanted to be able to say, oh, we had an amazing event and we love the crowd and please come back and spend more money with us. Fuck that. I don't want fans like that anywhere near my game. If you're willing to help your team cheat when you go to a CS event, you don't care about Counter-Strike. You never have. You may as well support the match fixing we've got widespread. You may as well support people downloading hacks. You can never criticize any of it again. None of it. If you were one of those people in that crowd, you forfeit all right to ever talk about what's fair. I hope somebody cheats against Astralis so you get a taste of it. That's the only way your brain will make the fucking connection.
Even though I know, like, you and I are both on the same page, that, like, in theory, beyond cheating, of course, you are allowed to boo if you're a fan who has paid. Like, at the end of the day, you don't have to like.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't they booed in the interviews. I don't give a fuck about that. I don't give a fuck if you hurt Shox' feelings, whatever. In the game, when you are literally shouting shoot when there's a smoke in place, when you are literally calling out flanks, right? Sure. And then, just to show how little you actually care about the game holistically, you had a chance to watch 2021 Na'Vi, what is potentially like the last dance of a great Vitality side. You're not interested in that, are you? Oh, look, he's not playing. Fucking hell. Like, how brainwashed are these fucking morons?
Oh, that's
Like,
what
it's
point I
unreal.
wanted to make. Like, the crowd even sucked outside the context of the cheating, Richard. The maddest match, this might be, in context of the rest of the event, the craziest match I've ever watched in my entire career in esports, was the upper bracket final, which obviously is the match that ended up being replayed in the final, when Na'Vi played Vitality the first time. This is the upper bracket final of a big seasonal finals for the Blast League, right? Mate, nobody gave a fuck about this game. And this is the irony of it all. Because the sound mix is so amazing at Blast, the joke I made on Twitter was it sounded like I was watching the game on AirPods in an airport. I could just hear like weird ambient sounds around. And the game was just going on. And I'm like, mate, this is not only the number one team in the world, it's the newly crowned major champions. And even if you don't, like, even if, for example, by the way, like the angle you could have for why people wouldn't be into it is, well, Vitality were going to lose. They still have Ziwu, one of the best players in the entire world, who is pretty much guaranteed, if you just put your eyes on the screen, to thrill and entertain you. And then they have legends like Shocks and Apex and Major Winner. The idea, like, if this crowd isn't into that match, I'm just going to say it, they're not into Counterstrike. So this was some sort of a weird publicity stunt for Astralis, pretending to be an esports event. Like, if I was actually the Blast people, I would genuinely be ashamed of that whole event. I would think to myself, right, from now on, I can't ever have any of my finals in Denmark again, because it just becomes an unfair home event for one of the teams. Even when the other Danish team plays them, for fuck's sake, it's an away game. Like, how can we have this? Because under those circumstances, by the way, the entire Blast circuit needs to be rethought. Because now you either need to literally pay extra appearance fees to every team not Astralis, or you could just do what I even said on Twitter. I actually gave the only solution anyone else even suggested. I said, here's what you do. You don't hold real events in Copenhagen anymore. You hold explicit show matches, and the show match is Astralis versus whatever foreign team. And the foreign team coming knows they're going to be booed against, they're going to be cheering. In fact, it'll be a very unique sort of environment. It'll be the only true home game in esports beyond China, as I alluded to. You could even do a whole thing about it in that scenario, by the way. You wouldn't even have a problem with them all shouting, etc. It would just be par for the course. But as I said, it can't be a final. This can't be the end of the season. This was the fall finals. Imagine I worked all those months as another team, but I just don't happen to be Astralis. And then I go to the LAN. No one cares about me when I'm in the upper bracket final trying to take on the best team maybe fucking ever, and then they just cheat against me when I do play the home team. What are we getting out of this? Like, what is the point of this event? Because as you say, if this one element didn't exist, the rest of the event would have dumpstered a PGL major, would have made it look like a joke.
Well, two final points. The first is, by the way, if anyone has any doubt about how unique a situation this is, think about how beloved NIP are in Sweden. And think about how we just had a major in Stockholm where NIP were in the playoffs. Duncan, did anyone shout any call-outs?
Oh, no. In fact, I'll even go one further. I'll guarantee if you went back and checked the tape when G2 was battering NIP and Nico was going off, I guarantee they cheered for him. I bet when he had an amazing deagle on, they all cheered, of course.
Yeah. So there's just no dressing that up. The other thing I would say is... remember, the way Blast operates is all the other teams are partners in the league. You're essentially like a franchise, Blast partnered team. If I'm those teams and I'm watching Astralis essentially be allowed with impunity to benefit from the cheats, I'm having a meeting with Blast on Monday.
Wait a minute, Richard, you've nailed it. Why didn't I think of this? You know what happens whenever Blast does something that's unfair against competitive integrity of the rules? The players just protest, Richard, until it's solved. So it's okay. Don't worry. We don't need to talk about this. I'm sure Chris J and all the other players just did a protest at the event and didn't refuse to play the match.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously as well.
Oh, my bad. CSPPA. Wah, wah. Didn't happen, did it? Nothing happened as usual. By the way, one other thing I want to quickly say is this, because the other thing that I can't stand in life, by the way, it's generally just being gaslit. But it's when I'm being gaslit about stuff that, like, even the person saying it can't, they must be gaslighting themselves. They can't really believe it. So as usual, by the way, you can imagine what sports fans do I hate the most? Fucking European football fans. Because they are the stupidest. Like, by default, they are the stupidest fans of any sport I've ever met. Because their literal arguments in every other sport go like this, Richard. Yeah, but in football, it's like, yeah, but in football, you can't. Like, they don't even think of the context. So think about this, right? They were saying, yeah, but in football, you could shout at someone. This isn't football. Let me give you two examples of real sports that have existed for a long time. You try this behavior, right? Here's the two scenarios I want stupid, gammon, idiot football fan. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to go to a PGA Tour game of golf, right? And right when Tiger Woods is about to hit the ball, ball, you're just going to shout, "Four!" Just shout that right before he hits it. Now, let me know, by the way, how long you stay at that event. There's the other one, right? After that, because you're going to be yanked out you're literally going to be banned like 1 second after you do that, the first time you do it. After that, you're going to take a trip to any major Grand Slam event in tennis. And when you go there, right when he's about to serve, you can already guess, can't you? You're going to shout the same thing. You're going to go, "Four!" And guess what? You're going to be banned from the arena again. You're never coming back to the Australian Open, and you will be considered an international joke. You might even get on the news for what a moron you are. The idea this is just sports. Like, I'm not only am I never going to take a moron who just started supporting Australis 2 years ago, telling me what CS and esport land history was like. You're not also going to tell me that all sports operate this way. Like, they're making it sound, Richard, like all sports are like the fucking Roman Colosseum. It's like, if he dies, he dies. It's like, there's none of that. What are you talking about? There's tons of sports have rules of decorum, and you'll notice, by the way, the two I gave in particular were way better analogs to Counterstrike because they're games in which there's a certain point in the game you can't speak because it can unduly affect the competitor. That's way more comparable than fucking football. In football, by the way, think about it logically. Mousenet made this point, but he made it about the NBA. He said it doesn't even work in other sports. Like, in other sports, it's not like in the basketball you can shout something to the guy and he just shoots for no reason early. Like, he's not even going to listen to you in that scenario because there's no information burden. Like, if you go, like, to Steph Curry, like, shoot now, he's not just going to shoot, is he? But the equivalent in Counter-Strike is they might do that if you say, shoot behind the smoke. Like, the whole thing's fucking nonsense. I'm so sick of these kids trying to tell me, like that I just woke up out of a coma and this is how it's always been. It hasn't.
No, it was really, really bad. And it does overshadow, by the way, to sort of come back and dole out some positives. I mean, I think the fact that what was a great event, apart from the crowd aspect of it, was it's just sad that it's not like entire glowing positives because they stuck to schedule. There were very few like even tech problems in the games. The ones that did happen were resolved very quickly. The production value was through the roof. It looked great. It sounded great. The audio mix was fantastic. And so, and honestly, as well, I thought it was good to see this crossover with, traditionally ESL talent and obviously Blast talent. By the way, I'll just say this specifically.
What was this? Where there was 4 quarterfinals. Bardolph didn't even do a single one. I'll never. You have to understand. I will never let petty shit go ever. That's basically my whole brand.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah, no, that literally is your brand. I'm not a surprise. But no, what I was going to say was, don't anybody dare tell me, by the way, that like after listening to the cast, Scrawny and Launders couldn't hang at a major. Because I thought the work they did at that event, obviously this isn't like say everyone else was bad or anything. I'm not a Redditor. I don't need to do that. Right. I just want to give specific praise to them because they weren't at the major. And I thought, the cast they did in the final, it was as good as any of the work anyone's doing right now.
No, I'm going to go the other way on this one. I'm going to gaslight all you how you gaslight me. So in the same way as I think it's ridiculous that just happening to undercut people or have relationships and do all the events means you had to be hired for the major, I'll just do what you guys did to me. I'll spin it the other way and go, this is actually a disgrace, Richard. They didn't even hire any of the casting duos who worked the major to do the event. So wasn't even a tier 1 event. See how that works, dickheads? Oh, it's almost like we should go with the fucking A test, shouldn't we? Because I agree with you. Obviously, they're one of the best duos overall. Like, I will say, I don't personally think they're at the heights that, like, Henry and Sado were at the top. But I'll also add this in there. That's why that whole major discussion was way trickier than people made it out to be. Because these guys haven't had the same amount of reps in the big stadiums, have they? By the time, by the way, forget even when you're number one. By the time people like Henry and Sado were going to become number one, they've probably already done, like, 15 stadium events or something, like, massive crowds. So it takes years to actually get the pit down. Like, I noticed Semler even made this point on that day on the thing we did for Deserto, which I'm sure the others wouldn't have known about. Here's another reason why it's not as simple as just throwing people who have good commentary skills onto a game. Semler has said himself, once he noticed what the crowd setup was like, he was doing the, like, super careful casting that you had to do years back. Yeah, where it's like you can never sort of give away a flank. You can never do anything that when they sort of turn the mic on, they can capture what you're doing. So, like, I agree, they did a very good job overall. But, like, the joke is, like, that's why it's really hard to be the best casters in the world. It's hard. Yeah,
but again, it all comes back to the crowd as well. There's nothing worse, than being given a final and sort of having to work with a fucking dead crowd. And in that sense, like, speaking as somebody that's been on stage before, I've been a singer, So I've been on those gigs when no one's into what the band's doing and you're trying to get people into it. And it might be like 5 people out of like a room full of 100, 200 people. I've done that. I've bombed in fucking stand-up comedy. There's nothing worse than dealing with the fucking wall of silence because you're not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere. You've got to do your job for the allotted time. And so what Launders and Scrawny did with a fucking crowd that was like whack, mad props to them and mad props to the few fans, the 30% that actually stuck around and got to see a great final. So we can talk about some of the games now. So why don't we just start by segueing to talk about Astralis? Because you're warmed up now. You've got your material ready. So let's do that. So obviously, this was a good opportunity to take a long look at the new look Astralis. And spoiler, my opinion was that I actually, and I think we said it on the last episode, but I didn't think that this lineup was going to immediately click, and I still think it's got some big deficiencies, and those most notable for me are I don't think Lucky's going to do it. Suddenly, as we'll get to, suddenly everyone thinks.
Here's the thing, Richard. If this was the show the day after Blast, you'd be shit out of luck. We'd be eating crow like a motherfucker. Thankfully, that little bit of scheduling delay means they're already out of the next tournament. So fucking roll on, just come back. Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right? Papa bless.
In that way, by the way. Because in League of Legends, if you ever get anything wrong, you have to wait like 6 months before you can get a fucking time,
Yeah,
and 3 days later or whatever, already out sound.
Yeah. But they have done us a massive favour, actually. Thanks, Astralis. But no, so the bottleneck, I think, is Lucky, who, by the way, after this event, everyone, you're talking about gaslighting.
That was more gaslighting. It was full spectrum. And the worst thing is, look, the fans and the players are bad enough, but this is where the full Astralis PR machine's behind it again. And God, I can't. Lord save us from Astralis PR statements, because they just
save us from Astralis, mate.
Somehow their PR statements are treated like the fucking tablets passed down from Mount Sinai that are like so precious. But yet when we reveal real info that it just factually comes true, it's like, lucky. You just got lucky on that one, didn't you? It's like,
yeah. So anyway, so keep in mind, obviously, they had a very partisan crowd on their side. But they started the tournament with that famous grudge match that I said, in the Deserto preview we did. Basically saying, this was a real spicy game because Esatag had come into NIP and said, oh, yeah, I don't think that Astralis lineup's going to work. I don't think, I think it was Blame F. He said, I don't think Blame F's going to get all of his positions. And I don't think Lucky's a tier 1 AWPer. Esatag didn't hold back. Now, unfortunately, Esatag was absolutely dog shit in that series. And Astralis won 2-0. So it wasn't all that spicy at all, but it could have been. Then, obviously, they lost to Astralis. They lost to Vitality. They beat FaZe and beat Heroic, and then lost to Vitality again. So they ended up finishing 3rd overall. But there was an interesting thing that happened along the way, which was Lucky, their star in the making AWPer, just wasn't AWPing. Glaive was AWPing.
Player capable of replacing device, said a writer for esports, I believe it was. That was
Upcomer. It's got to be Upcomer. It's got to be Upcomer. It's got to be Upcomer if it's that stupid. So anyway, I was like watching the games and I was going Glaive, and then in some games,
config was as well.
Yeah. I'm like, what is happening here? It's like, put it this way, I know that Lucky also, especially in the NIP game, had like some nice rounds. Like he ended up like, I think he top fragged on Inferno, I'm not too sure. But everyone was like saying, oh, look, that's why. Well, first of all, I'll just tell you this. If the plan moving forward is for Glaive to be open, spoiler, it doesn't look like it actually is. It looks like it was just an experiment for this tournament. But if that's the plan, Glaive is many things. He's the all-time great IGL, future Hall of Famer, great guy, good player, obviously, with all of that. But an AWPer, he isn't. It's too late in the game to fucking add that string to your bow. And just what a weird fucking vote of no confidence in your young player. That, by the way, you've all been saying. I mean, so first up, we had Casper shit. obviously do an interview. Sam, it's up there if you want, right? I don't know if you want to play it, but maybe again you can just sort of mix it in with us. The timestamp should be there. But basically, what he said was, all of next year, no roster moves. This is the team we've got. And so what we're going to do is we will swap roles around from time to time if we need to. As if that was part of the plan all along. Once again, classic Astralis. No, we wanted to have an inferior
This is
offer
more extreme. Because here's the problem. I was watching this just before the episode so I could get the rough wording of it. He says like something along the lines of like he basically rebuts the idea that like this is in like an overnight change or like Glaive's just taking the op from him now. But then he purposely backs into a very vague statement about how they're doing this to find out like first of all the most hilarious part is he says that these 5 players are the best ones and the ones that they're going to use. By the way, absolutely owned Bobsky, you moron. He didn't even remember you existed in the team. So he says these 5 players are the only ones we're going to use. And then he says, basically, about the AWPing thing, he goes, it's about finding the best tactics for all of the maps. So, on this map, it may be Glaive, and on this one, it could be cover. And then he says, he backs into this mad statement where he says that some of these ideas go back 1 year. By the way, Lucky wasn't even vaguely like a glimmer in the dream of an Astralis 1 year ago. So, like, it's like the way he just attaches it to the biggest lie possible. Like, we're supposed to believe, because remember, you have to remember, in the way that Astralis has presented this, especially with how they just dealt with Dupree and Magisk exiting, which was they implied that they didn't like their performance at the major, benched them and replaced them. This is all spinning into a narrative that, like, forget the nib system. This is the idea that this was some master plan. Like, this is some like QAnon level shit from over 1 year ago. This was all planned, all the chess pieces. It's just nonsense, isn't it? Like, by the way, also implies they knew they were going to sell Divide. Everything about it's nonsense. Every single thing about it is nonsense. It can't be true.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely ridiculous. And on top of that, as well, I mean, like, but when Bubsky finally gets out of this nightmare, which by the way he put himself in, right? I can't wait to hear the about face. I can't wait because how cooked do you have to be at this point? So right. Thanks for helping us qualify to a major while Glaive takes some time off. P.S. You will not be going to the major you qualified for and not getting the potential windfall of sticker money or any of that shit. Thanks. Cheers. If you want, we'll pay for your ticket to come and you can serve us energy drinks if you like. Right? Then, after that, they say this is definitely the 5 that we've got. You have a 6-man roster. In fact, you're the motherfuckers that were trying to pioneer 10-man rosters because you're full of shit and you're just trying to lie to your fucking shareholders and tell them that everything you're doing is like some pioneering move to try and keep your fucking share price up and keep people excited in your product when you are just another tired-ass CS team that has existed since time. I won't even start about your other properties that you've got that are all under the Astralis umbrella and what they're doing these days. So, whatever the fuck. Then, right, you take the junior AWPer that you're meant to be getting table time with so he can grow and blossom. You take away his primary weapon. Well, in that case, how is Bubsky not a better option?
He is, obviously, isn't he? The sad thing about this, by the way, Richard, is my take on this is it's a very simple one. But I notice not many other people seem to be vibing with this. First of all, I can't believe how many people actually think this is a real experiment, that they think Glaive's going to be the AWPer and Lucky's going to be a rifler. Like, first of all, beggars belief. As you said, you just bring Bobsky back. Like, at that point, it's inarguable. Then also, in my opinion, the take goes like this. Here's what I actually think happened. I think once Glaive signed his deal and Glaive and Zipnix are locked in, then they get config and blame F, and he knows Astralis is fucking around with that 5th spot. They won't let me have Bobsky. They're going to keep this Lucky guy. Maybe they're trying to flip him. Maybe they're trying to do something. Who knows what the angle is, right? Maybe they're waiting for someone else's contract to end. I think Glaive, no joke, just thought this. No one said I have to give him the AWP. So here's my creative strategy as to how we win this game. They're never going to expect it, but I'm an AWP. I'm an AWP in a very specific way. I'm only going to do it short term while it works. Because he's such a winner, he just wanted to win those games. I have no background info on that, by the way. It's pure speculation. But it's a more plausible story than the one they're spinning.
Oh, yeah, well, let's talk about spinning that story. So, right, I can't do this. And like, Sam, mate, like, I need you here with me because obviously me and you, we've been to the Shadow Realm. We've done all the drugs. How can this be real?
This is full reek shit now.
How can this be real? There was an interview on HLTV from Lucky where he literally said, and keep in mind, Glaive was AWPing. Look, he didn't pick up the AWP once, and he went. People saying Glaive took the AWP from me. It's not true at all. Am I tripping? Like, am I on a permo? Did my brain break? What? Well, if he didn't take them, well, how did it happen? He's the in-game leader. He makes the tactical choices. You weren't AWPing. He was AWPing. What is going on here? This is how mad Astralis are as an org. That this is a junior kid, and he's already embedded into the weight of the lie. And of course, every Astralis fan now will just repeat that ad nauseum. Glaive absolutely took the AWP off you. Do you know why? Because you're fucking dog shit with the AWP. That's why. They were trying to think of a way to win in front of a home crowd, just like Duncan says. Of course they took the AWP off you, you mad cunt. You didn't use it. What else is going on? I was totally free to buy it if oh my God, like, when will it stop with Astralis? They can't even tell the truth about things you can see.
Also, by the way, as if to just contrast how shit Lockie is for all you apologists out there, a super old ass IGL had in one series a better game than Lockie's ever had in his entire fucking career at tier 1. And by the way, spoiler, Glaive won't be continuing doing that. And even he can't maintain that. That was a one-off miracle.
No, and like I say, he's going to get the
He's fucking right to take that off, wasn't he? Exactly. Yeah. It's what Glaive actually did, the unironic, like, fucking shit that used to happen when we were at school. Like, right, give it 8. It's like, he did that to you. He fucking dadded you.
Yeah, but then it gets worse because it's Astralis, right? Blame F. He's only been in the team how long? And then look, he knows as well. He did another interview here. Blame F. Lucky has impressed me so much. He's multi-fragging more than me. Like, oh, Astralis, I fucking despise you. I despise you. I despise this. The Astralis system isn't bringing through good talent and building winning teams. It's just building a wall of PR bullshit that's almost impenetrable because there are so many lies to get through. You just get bored of it and go, yeah, whatever you say, Mr. Nyholm, whatever you say, Mr. Shit. Like, it's mental. There is no way. Think of the players Blame F has played with in his already short tenure. Lucky's the one that's impressed you, is it? Lucky.
It's so
the next Yugi. This is the one, is it? Oh, good, excellent. I'm on board with this.
And what's impressed you most about his play? The multi-fragging? Like, is this some sort of full spectrum? Is this Chinese water torture? And you're trying to break me now? Is this what's going on? Is this like in fucking that show, Altered Carbon, where there was that episode and they were just inside his mind trying to torture him, break him? Like, so I feel like, because listen, of all the things that impressed me, right, he won a few clutches, I'll give you that. By the way, Mouse Snake had a great point. He effectively, in those clutches, this is how fucked Astralis is. In the clutches, it was almost like Lucky just told Zipnix, like, I'll bait you and then I'll get the kill. Like,
yeah.
Zipnix, motherfucker! Like, everything about this is so whack. Like, are we just going to find out Lucky just is the fucking seed of Nicola Nyholm? There's no other explanation at this point in time. It must just be that his ex-wife was like, right?
The way you framed it like seed as well, like not love child, not seed, like some unholy element to it.
Scion of the Nyholm Empire, exactly. And he's just like, right, better start spending fucking time with the kids, and or she's gonna bloody take it all. And he's like, right, she's taking off the LEC spot.
It's just too much. Like, it's just too much. Now, look, just to bring it back to what the podcast is ostensibly about. Like, I know to try not to factor in today, but overall, a third place finish at this tournament. Yeah, you think it's a good start?
Look, I already, obviously, spoiler, know what happens at IEM Winter where they do absolute dog shit and they're irrelevant already. For that tournament, when you look at the teams on paper that began the tournament, Astralis had no business being third at that event. Like, and then you look who they beat. The heroic one is the big one. Yeah, like, listen, I can't ignore the crowd element, but they did straight up beat one of the best teams in the world, 2-0. Like, that's legit as fuck. So, listen, I even would have told you, now obviously it's compromised because everyone knows I know this, I would have told you they don't do it again. Obviously, they fall off. It's a one-off. It's a miracle. Because I'm not one of these idiots who just sees something one time and goes, oh my God, I'll continue. Like, I went in like you. I had a lot of skepticism about this line, but I still do. And by the way, there's a reason we focused on him. This guy's the main reason why. Like, the saddest thing of all is this. This is why they have to actually lie to us. Because if you even looked and you just ignored all that they've said, the first thing you'd think would be, well, fuck Richard, if they could do that with Lucky and he's not even open his rifle. Imagine if they got a real AWPer. That would be the first thing you'd think, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because logically, if they were as good, listen, spoiler, they're not going to be as good as they were there. But if they were as good as they were at that event, with a real AWPer, like the joke is, if Device just rejoined tomorrow, they'd be fucking compete with Navi for the best in the world. They really would, wouldn't they? In theory.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. I mean, for me, look, I'm still excited by the lineup, but I'm going to stand by my original assessment in that I think Lucky's a bottleneck. I think Zipnix is washed.
Oh, he's looks so washed. It's unbelievable, mate. It's actually depressing.
Yeah, and it's like, listen,
he's got the money already. Now in theory, it's time to play, isn't it?
He got the bag. It's sad to say that one of the greats, is washed, but it's where you all end up. We all end up there. We all end up fucking washed up. I don't know. I still worry about this sort of maintaining a consistent top 10 presence, honestly, moving forward. And obviously, with what happened at IEM Winter today, I can feel a little bit validated, but we'll wait and see. Another team I wanted to talk about is the heroic aspect. Heroic. There's been a lot made about how good they actually are. Cadian obviously makes friends and enemies in equal measure with his PR approach. I don't mind it. I'd rather have players giving their honest opinions and trying to be clever and cute with the media than what we actually get, which is just, again, a wall of PR bullshit. So fair enough. It did massively backfire here. They beat FaZe. They lost an RV, but they did take a map off them.
Yep.
Which, they nearly choked it, in all honesty. I think they were like 15-6 up or something.
Oh, they had to do a massive comeback.
Yeah, and they did like 16. They won 16-14 in the end.
Yeah.
And then obviously they were beaten by Astralis, and they did seem to capitulate in the second map, which was Nuke, their pick. Yep. Usually Heroic are very good on that. So listen, I still think the Heroic lineup is solid. I still really like the way they play. There are a few question marks for me about where they actually are in the world, because like right now they're ranked 5th. They're below Gambit, G2, Vitality, Na'Vi. Keep in mind, that Vitality isn't even a real team anymore. So that's in there. Gambit lost today again, which not a surprise to me. I think they've got real problems actually when it comes to maintaining the standard they've set for themselves. So whereabouts are Heroic within the context of this result for you? And what do you think the sort of bottleneck for them is in terms of skill? A lot of people say it's Cadian, but he wasn't the player that went missing in the Astralis series.
No. I mean, for the whole Blast in general, it looked like actually it was Tessus who was having a bit of an underwhelming performance. He wasn't really like the star frag, and I expect. No, the problem I have with Heroic as a team is if you ignore the results, like you don't look at the score, the eye test checks out like a motherfucker. They look really good. Like they're actually a mega team on loads of maps. Their playing style, you wouldn't believe actually that players that are relatively inexperienced like this would be such a great unit. The problem is this, and obviously again, I now know the context that they go out of IEM Winter in last place. But my problem, even after that Astralis game was, and it's obvious, is like, where's the mental at? Where's the mental fortitude of this team? Because I've now seen this a few times. Like at the major, I'll give them credit. I thought they played great under pressure in the stage matches. But if you think about it, like they were the team where, to reference the thing about Cadian earlier, they were like limping through those Swiss systems when they should have been easily just dusting people off. So I've got my question. It feels almost like they flip a coin, and sometimes 50% of the time they just have a dog shit mental. Because like in these games, like anytime it gets close as another team, you start to get a little bit like they have the squeaky bomb time going on for sure.
Yeah, it's tough for me because it's like I think the core that they've got is like really good, where even the like players that don't get talked about as much, the Tezes and Shush combination, they all have banger maps where
everyone's good on this team.
Yeah, they take over a whole game. I do wonder if an aspect of it is Cadian, because I know you've made this point before where it's like he's not really a tier 1 AWPer. But does he need to be as an IGL? Well, yeah, it turns out the AWP is pretty important, and all the teams that are above them, they've got tier 1 AWPers, and that's a fundamental problem. So Yeah, I don't know, man. I felt Heroic should have done better here. I thought Astralis was there for the taking, and I did think
Absolutely.
it was an environment Heroic would thrive on. Actually, the hostile crowd, all of the history between the orgs. I thought that would have been, they would have been as hyped up as they were at the major, but they weren't. And yeah, it was sort of sad to see them get battered on their map pick by a new Astralis team who might not even be that good on that map, based on other information. So it's, these last two tournaments, it's a little bit tricky. I just hope we haven't seen the peak of them at the major, because obviously for them, it was a huge mental landmark to get that far with all of the problems they've had. But if you ever find yourself content with second place, you're never going to make it to first. It's just that simple. And I do worry about Heroic moving forward, and I hope they can overcome whatever it is that's holding them back, because they are a great team to watch, a lot of fun, great young players. Yeah, the other team, obviously, we can talk about Vitality here, because they did go all the way through to the final. Where the fuck did they pull this from? I don't understand it, because it's like they have, they're a dead team walking. They've joked about this. They actually look galvanized and better than they have in ages. Yeah.
Somehow that news coming, which in theory, if you knew French Counterstrike, should have killed the team dead instantly, actually looks like it's made them better. Like, somehow you're right. It sort of made them on this. Like, the joke is, every other shit team wants to do a last dance. They're doing the real last dance, Richard. Like, they know they've got, I think it was like 3 lands. Obviously, the IM Winter, and then there's the finals for Blast. It almost looks like it has like made them have like one last little legit run. They're never going to win the tournament, so you don't have to worry about like, oh, should we have done the roster move? You still do the roster move, but you're getting this amazing fucking value on the back end. This is actually incredible what they're doing now.
Yeah. So I mean, look, let's talk about just the tournament run that they had. They beat Liquid, and it was they even jokingly said going in, I think in an interview, Apex said Battle of the Dead Teams. They beat Astralis. They beat Astralis twice, so they beat them twice with a really partisan crowd, giving away their positions and everything. They did that. The only team that made them look ordinary was Na'Vi, who do that to everyone at the moment. But then even in the final...
The final was good, though. Yeah, they had some good moments.
I mean, like the first 2 maps... I mean, first of all, Vitality, this dead Vitality, being the team to end the nuke streak of Na'Vi, when G2 couldn't even do it and stuff. That's mad impressive. And I'll also just add, I mean, we got a tantalizing glimpse of what ZWoo could be in that particular map. ZWoo took over that game. But I mean, Shocks also massively rolled back the years. And you can probably tell his contract's up for renewal. This is like the best he's looked in a long time, actually, Shocks. So there was a lot to like about Vitality at this event. And I'll tell you what, I mean, I think they realize Kyojin's been a bust, and I don't know what he's going to do moving forward.
They work around it though. Have you noticed? Like they don't seem like that bombs them out. It's almost like they just know they're playing sort of 4v5 or something.
Yeah, it's crazy, because like honestly, I get why they took a gamble on Kyojin. You had to develop young talent. The French scenes needed that for a long, long time. Unfortunately, their secondary generation to the great generation of players they got, they were all bums. Exactly. The Devils and Bodies and people, like, they were bums. And you can, it's sort of like what happened in Sweden. You can only work with what's there. And unfortunately, if you get a generation of Disco Doppelans and Freddie B's, there's not really much you can do with that, even if they get a chance to play with the greats. And the French scene, that was impacted, upon them. So I get why they took a gamble on Kyojin. Masood has been great. And when you consider Masuta is younger than Kyojin, fully justified in sort of, keeping him around and developing him the way they did. Kyojin just hasn't worked out. So that makes this Vitality run all the more impressive, because Kyojin still played pretty badly at this tournament. I don't think he's ever going to shake off what happened at the major. It's one of the worst all-time major performances, especially from a younger player. But I thought Vitality moving forward, it's almost like if they'd done this and we didn't know roster moves were coming, you would be like, don't fuck with this team. Maybe go out, change one player, get rid of Kyojin, and give it another go. Instead, we're getting a glimpse into an alternate timeline that we're never going to fully get to explore because we know what the changes are going to be after this tournament. And I think it's a little bit of a shame because Vitality do seem to have turned a corner. Apex is playing lights out, doing a great job as IGL, and they really pushed Na'Vi in that series. So fair play to them. I don't know if you've got anything you want to add before we pour praise upon Na'Vi.
I mean, I thought Vitality played some great Counterstrike in general. I thought they played way above the level that you should even have expected. Like I said, if you knew anything about the French scene, you would actually think they would be the people who would be the ones instantly checked out. Like, just all forwarded in, don't talk to each other, lose the games, just go home. As, by the way, seems to be the fucking trend right now with a lot of people getting paid mega bucks. I do think, though, that, like, it's not a problem that they're going to change lineup. Like, the idea they were going to have a French team, I think the only thing, because you're right, the next generation of French players never lived up to what they were supposed to be.
Yeah.
The only thing that even kept the French team going is that you have Zero, basically. Like, in my opinion, it's the fact that he was so young and had to speak French that they kept one French core going. I think now, just like with G2, these teams will never go back to being French. They're just going to be international from here on out. And people like Zero, they've probably actually had enough fucking time in the hurt locker to realise it's just time to play internationally, isn't it? Like, it's the only way I'm going to win. So I thought it was mad cool, but I do also personally think that they wouldn't have had the same results if they weren't changing roster. I think somehow that did actually have some effect. Pure speculation, of course, but it just seems like it made people play like a bit freer. Like, right, just play the way we can, do our best in this game. No, I would imagine one thing it does, by the way, that's probably a positive, is you don't bother judging people and nitpicking because something small happened because you're not going to be in the team together in 2 months or whatever. So you just play it out and you kind of just give people a break. And looked at in this scenario, caught a bit of a second wind, as it were. Won a few games that maybe were borderline otherwise. I don't think they can actually be one of the best teams in the world with this lineup. Obviously, I want to see the next lineup. It sounds amazing, has mad potential. But I just think the coolest thing for me is, I'll contrast it with Heroic. What incredible mental fortitude this team must have. As I said, people like Apex were smart enough, they've been in the game long enough to know I'm never going to have this crowd on my side. So fuck it, I'll just come out antagonizing them. I'll be the villain. If they're not gonna, by the way, if they're not gonna give me any cheers, let's have them actually fucking boo us then. Let's make our whole game to annoy this crowd and make them be silent. Like, that's actually a cool angle if you can pull it off. Hence why Fallen famously was able to create a whole persona based around that. That's actually a cool angle if you can do that. It takes a certain type of guy who's mentally can withstand that. It's just not many people.
And I'll also just thank Apex for giving Anders his greatest tweet. I'm sure you saw it.
Yeah.
So if anyone hasn't seen the clip of Apex, there's a bit where it's clear that they're winning, and he does this, and Anders just took that clip and just said, like, my face when pleasuring 3 women at once, which goes, Anders couldn't pleasure one woman at once. But you know, like seriously, it's also his most popular tweet. Which is just, you know, his entire career sort of like he's having an existential crisis after that. But anyway, yeah, I agree, mate. To basically go into a lion's den like that and just be like, fuck you then, all right, let's do it. Screaming at the crowd, calling them bastards. Like, Apex has gone up a lot in my estimation. Not just because of that, but like you say, the way he's handled this entire transition. And just to tag on to a point that we did bring up in the last episode where we were talking about, the Rostermania episode, I should say. You know, we said Magisk might want to run at IGL because he's been doing it, and Zonic's Danish, they might want to work. I think it would be a crime. Whatever mental problem Apex had when him and Xtaz weren't exactly vibing with each other, Apex has turned the corner, and I don't think you can take the crown off him here. I think he deserves a shot with a new roster.
By the way, one thing I should actually use this as a moment to say, though, is if ever again you needed another example of how good Xtaz is as a coach, look what he's fucking doing with a team that's dead. Meanwhile, by the way, like a dreaded, just sat back like, no timeouts, no changes, nothing. I just get my money right, Elige. Like, this is a night and day. The contrast is pathetic, you know.
It is ridiculous.
So, by the way, Xtaz is just going to literally, like, you can obviously speak English. Just grow the fuck up. There are no French jobs. Just agree you will speak in English. I've no doubt you could literally start tomorrow and be fine. And you can have a gig. Because if you're willing to coach international teams, I'd put this guy on my fucking shortlist immediately. He's obviously mega.
Yeah, I mean, put it this way: after Zonic, where do you go if you want to get a great coach? You know, I know G2, for example, might be a little bit gun shy with French coaches because Malik didn't work out. They're very different people with very different philosophies and, to be honest, very different results, very different achievements. So yeah, super happy for Vitality. Shame in a way we're not going to get to see them go further. But now, obviously, we get to talk about the all-conquering Na'Vi. Another tournament under the bag, in the bag rather, fresh from the major. While they did lose the nuke streak here, in reality, no one even looked close to the level they're playing at right now. And while Simple got the MVP, that's not the full story. Like the problem you've got if you want to beat this Na'Vi team now overall is the ridiculous strength and depth they have across the board. Like, to put it in context, while Simple did top frag in the final, he like, if you go and look at the numbers, like, there's a really good distribution. It goes like him, Ziwu, and then it's just Na'Vi players. Bit had a monster final again. Particularly on Mirage.
Literally, the top 4 rated players were Simple, Ziwu, Bit, and Electronic. So it's just like the major. His supporting cast isn't just supporting him, Richard. They're as good as the star players of the other teams.
Yeah. I mean, that's the problem. So it's like, I also saw. So I wanted to ask you about this when we were doing the show. You made Brazilian news.
I saw this. It was. I don't know what they were referring to. It was just where I questioned Boomich or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, you did. Did you do a video recently where you were like saying because the team's so good, we don't know how good an IGL is?
I mean, I've said that on loads of shows. I assume they're just taking it from one of those,
Yeah, that was the quote in the thing, and of course it was just loads of Brazilian people underneath going, Thorin is shit. So anyway, I wanted to ask you about that because it is sort of true. Like, if you give all of the credit to Blade, which everyone seems to want to do now, even though for a long time they played pretty poor Counterstrike and weren't winning with 4 of these players. But the question does become, how do you assess Boomich as an IGL? Like, let's say for whatever reason there was a roster change in a year's time or whatever, if the Na'Vi era only lasts that long, and then Boomich goes out and then joins another team, and that team doesn't do well, what would we be able to say about Boomich? It's very, it was very similar. Zeus, who, remember, he's the guy who picked Boomich to come in. We were like, Zeus has failed in this team for a long time. This Navi's really, underwhelming. He's a problem in the team. His insistence on keeping Edwards a problem in the team. He's holding this team back. Then he went to Gambit. Then he wins his major, and you go, oh, fucking hell, Zeus is, Zeus is amazing. We've got to completely reassess him as an IGL. It was obviously the people in Na'Vi were the problem. The players were the problem. And then he goes back to Na'Vi, and same shit happens again. So you end up with these strange legacies where it's very hard to assess how good somebody was as an IGL. I do think Boomich is in that mad world right now, but he won't give a fuck because at the end of the day, his achievement list is just going to be glittering trophies because no one's beaten this Na'Vi team for, I mean, I don't even know, the next 3 to 6 months minimum. It's going to take something happening, like a mad drop in form, Bit getting an ego, Electronic having to take some time off. So it's going to take someone like that to break this team up, like a player break destroyed Team Liquid. It's an outside factor that people have to wait for. I don't see how you can assemble a roster that can beat this team.
Problem I have is, it's like you said, if tomorrow, right, we did like a mad CIS roster shuffle, right, and so by the way, it doesn't have to just be Bit. Just imagine Boomich, a whole bunch of players get moved around. They're all in new teams. So Simple's in a new team, Boomich is in a new team. In fact, right, here's the difference. The day that happens, I don't even think Boomich is the best CIS IGL. Never mind fucking the world's IGL. Like, does anyone really think if you put him onto fucking Virtus Pro, they become the best team in the world? Of course they don't. And by the way, that's a team with plenty of talent. So that's my issue, is I don't really buy it. Maui Snake on one of my other podcasts even made a point that I thought's an interesting one to bring up, which is, you know, when Na'Vi have all those papers in front of them, each of them, not just the IGL, all of them have these papers they sort of study at the beginning of the game, right? He thinks, there's an interesting side angle, he thinks that actually Blade might literally be scripting the first rounds of what they do. So it's like every first buy round, they maybe do this a set strat that he's already got written. So in that world, by the way, add that to the fact that you got the most firepower maybe ever of any IGL. And then on top of that, not just Simple, who's clearly very smart, but in interviews, they even imply, Blade implies, he's sort of grooming Electronic to be an IGL one day. So the problem is, when you put all these factors in together, it's not that Boomich isn't doing anything. It's just it becomes hard to know that he is doing anything, if that makes sense. So my issue is, I can't imagine he's doing a bad job of whatever he's doing because they're winning so much. He himself even plays well. But I do suspect that compared to any other IGL, maybe in history, he has the lightest requirement and maybe in certain areas doesn't even do anything. Maybe other players do it. I think, if anything, that's why I put a lot of the credit on Blade as well. It looks to me like the whole system of the team is what works.
Yeah, and it's just, now I think as well, like they've got that kind of, you know, they did need that extra gear because like Perfecto, he's that Zipnix type player. He's good to clutch you some rounds, but they didn't have like a really, you know, Flamey just wasn't a solid or reliable pick. You know, this was a guy who had like maybe a good performance 1 in every 10 maps, you know, and with Bit, it really has propelled him to the next level. The question for me is, who, like, I know people are hyped about G2. We still don't know where they're going with their lineup yet.
When you think anyone's hyped about G2, what's there to be hyped about?
Well, because everyone thinks this Munazi kid's going to come in and change the game. Which
this is
it can be like Ziwu, but I don't know.
These Zeros don't drop out the fucking sky. Yeah, so this is where also people gaslight us, Richard. So you know the same fans who go, I'll throw it back in your face the time you said Stewie 2K probably wouldn't be that good. So I missed once. Right, go on then. You guys do what you all do, which is every one of these players that comes through is a promising rookie. They're all going to make it by according to you guys. Right, if I missed one time with Stewie 2K, then the difference is you all missed 99% of the time. They can't all be fucking god tier players. They do this with everyone, mate. BMAS, where's he? You're supposed to be the next fucking god tier player, right? Go through the list, mate. All those fucking guys from NIP. By the way, Device himself every year was bigging up these who play in NIP or don't even play anymore. Like people's eye test is shot as fuck. Like, yeah, that guy looks amazing on tier 2 or in academy leagues. They're already like granting it like he is the next year. They're basically acting like they really have already just bought Ziwu 2.0 and he's just going to be with Nico. There's a million factors can go wrong in that fucking G2 team, mate. I know where you're going with the question, which is like, who the fuck can beat him? Because right now, the answer is no one, logically.
Well, and so this is why I ask, because it's like Heroic seem to have a good matchup with Na'Vi, but they do seem to lack that extra dimension to be able to beat them consistently. Gambit, I don't think, as we get back into the LAN era, I don't know. I'm not vibing with that at all. They lost again today to Virtus Pro. I'm not really. I think that brief window into what could have been, I think that window's closed for a bit, and Gambit are going to have to get back to the drawing board, honestly, and build on the mental aspects. That game theory is fantastic, but it's, you know, LAN is a different beast. NIP, I mean, let's be real, as long as they have Plopsky on the lineup and, you know, they can't get consistent T rounds, that's going to be an issue. If G2 are relying on Na'Vi Academy players to try and unlock the secret to beating Na'Vi, if you say that sentence out loud, it doesn't excite me at all. And so I think you're left with that Vitality mashup, basically. If that Vitality mashup clicks and does what it should be able to do,
the obvious one has a chance.
That's the one. But
the angle for me is this. There's also a world where in like 3 months, Gambit's played enough lands that they sort of take over and become land vets. If that happens, they can also do it. But right now, I'm with you. That's why on paper, I get so bummed out that Heroic like didn't make the final, go out early in this IEM tournament, because it just makes a mockery of the fact that directly head to head, they look like the best team against them. The problem they have is they can't always reach them. And by the way, if you're Heroic, what a bad look it is that you go to a land without Navi, you just go last place. You fucking idiots. That was your chance to actually put yourself for real in this conversation.
Yeah, it was not good. So there's also been a few stories that have been floating around. One, we talked in Rostermania about what was going on with Team Liquid, so let's revisit that, because Team Liquid obviously are essentially another one of these dead teams walking. We don't know what the lineup's going to be, but we do know it's not going to be this one. So there were rumors going around from supposedly credible sources that, and by the way, kids, this is why these rumor accounts and supposedly these insider leakers, you never got to trust them. We talked about it, but we never endorsed it. Naf, who was supposedly meant to be going on the good ship Stewie out there to join EG, he's now re-signed with Liquid and is going to be sticking around. Apparently,
like 2 years or something. It was like a massive contract, wasn't it?
Yeah, it might even be 3. You know, a sizable contract. He's going to be Elise's dependable wingman now. So Naf has signed for Liquid, and so far the other names in the mix. And I told you this on the show, and I know this from my sources. Liquid, it would be generous to call it a scattergun approach to what they're looking to sign. They've been in talks with a number of CIS players. They've reached out to Danish players on Copenhagen Flames, we told you. That's definitely all been going down behind the scenes. They're trying to put together a roster that would be best described as eclectic, because Fallen's out, Stewie's out, and put it this way, I don't think Grim sort of has a future based on, you know, one of the things I did like about Blast. So suddenly in the post-major world, all the players who took fucking truth serum. All the interviews were fucking insane. Apex, like, yeah, we're a dead team and people are leaving, but we're going to do what we can. Stewie goes, yeah, Grim's just not up to it. He requires, like, a lot of teaching. And, you know, it's like, fucking hell, why can't you be like this the rest of the time? It's actually giving us something to talk about. But anyway, so obviously, they've been linked with Shocks. We also saw that apparently, and again, this is according to Nell, I can't remember who did the Shocks report, but the Shocks report was supposedly close to being done. Don't know what's going on there now. And then OC has also now been supposedly confirmed, also by Nell. And also Vinny was in the mix, the Brazilian from Furia. And Vinny is definitely not going to be playing for Furia moving forward, which is really strange because I thought their academy player Drop was the stand-in, not Vinny, who I think does great work in that team. So we'll just sort of...
How'd that 5-year contract work out for you? Is it working? You're enjoying time? Oh, did that only help the org? Think it through, Dom Fox.
Yeah. So Liquid so far, if Vinny's out the running, despite people saying he was in the running, ignore that. So you got OC, maybe Shocks, Naf, Elige, maybe Grim, maybe not. So I don't know what is going on with Liquid.
Fucked up Sophie's choice is it where I have to choose which do you want, Thorin, Vinny, or Grit? Can I just take the bullet? Like what's the fucking choice? Like, mate, this is the problem with that lineup, right? Is if you tell me we're getting OC, I don't hate that. Although I do hate it.
And I should add Nitro. Yeah, I left Nitro. It's meant to be coming back to IGL.
I hate it in Team Liquid because of how they've just treated Grim. They've shown no understanding whatsoever of how to use a potential star. With that said, he's on the AWP. You can't really get it too wrong there. Some teams do, but whatever. I assume they'll give him his spots, right? Then there's the Shocks one. Don't even hate that. Could be a very good veteran. Still wins clutches. Still a good land player. The problem is this. How the fuck is Vinny even on the table? Who the fuck is Vinny? He's the guy that no one ever talks about in Furia. He's the least meaningful, impactful, important, interesting player on Furia. Why is he joining Team Liquid? Does Team Liquid have either no eye test or no actual, like, nobody wants to join in the entire world? Like, I don't get that move.
Like
I don't even know why that was even postulated.
Yeah. I don't think he is gonna join, but you know what you have to understand is he was almost certainly contacted and sounded out. You know, and that's the thing. I don't even know who's calling the shots over at Liquid, because it seems to me that now I think we can all safely assume that basically Elige has a lot of input. And if Elite is sort of in a similar position how Nico was at FaZe, if Elige doesn't rate you, you're not going to be there. But also, I can't believe Elige rates these players. And maybe it's just like, look, they've said, we'll get you Nitro. I can't imagine buying Nitro from 100 Thieves in a different game came cheap, unless they are waiting for some contract to wind down or whatever. But Nitro coming back to CS, assuming that definitely happens, which it looks like it will, and that's what I heard behind the scenes was going on. And then OC on the AWP, I'm all right with that. Like, I think I said many times, he deserves a spot at tier 1. Bringing in Shox is a wild card out of fucking nowhere. So, I don't know, man. Liquid are on the precipice of becoming the next Cloud9. In the sense that, you remember when Cloud9 went through that ridiculous revolving door roster where, hey, we've got Kiyashima for a tournament, don't worry. Here's Refresh for a tournament, don't worry. Here's Flusher for a tournament, don't worry. Here's Golden for and it's like, everyone's just having a visit to play for Cloud9 for one tournament, and then they're out, but they're on like a year contract. You know, and you just don't see him again. So Liquid are really on the precipice, I think, because even without NAF, the EG project sounds way more interesting and way more capable to me than the roster associated with Liquid. I'll just add this. Them keeping NAF is huge. I'm sure you would agree with that.
Oh, if they don't keep NAF, the difference is this roster without NAF would be like, maybe they could crack top 10 if everything goes right. If they keep NAF and Elige, and then they add in, let's say OC does a decent job and Shox is just like a vet, you've already got the pieces of like a very legit top 10 team there.
Yeah. But, you know, that's what's been going on there. Also, I mean, Fury haven't said who Vinny is going to be replaced by, although there was a report saying they are interested in Safe. That was the report. I mean, that's one of those. But no, but I mean, that's one of those whack ass reports. I could have just wrote that. I could have just thrown darts at a board and wrote that. Because obviously they're interested. He's a fucking hot property in Brazil. He's like literally going to be the next breakout opera if someone will just give that motherfucker a chance. So obviously they're interested. It doesn't mean we're making serious overtures to bring him into the org or we can afford to do it or we've even had talks. Yeah, whatever. You can just write that and get away with it. So
I would even speculate, Richard, just a crazy idea for you, mate. If I was an org who wanted to sign Safe, but his buyout maybe was too big, what if I got a lot of fan interest by having it out there from the feelers that maybe were interested?
Something they do in mainstream sports all the fucking time, by the way, to kind of like, you know, leverage big moves. So, I mean, you know, Vinny going out of Furia, it's a strange one for me because while I agree with you, I don't think Vinny is like some fucking, you know, lights out player or, you know, whatever. It's like, obviously, he's one of those players who he's, I think, the, you know, kind of second lowest or lowest rated player on the roster, and he just does his role. But he's been integral to, he's been at the core of this team. He's like the longest serving player. And it's like for them to just decide he's the problem, he's the bottleneck, and they're going to keep this drop kid on the roster who, to me, I don't think he's done anything to justify a long-term spot. Like, I would rather keep Vinny, at least he's caught the identity of the team, over an academy player who's just joined and looked a little bit underwhelming at the major, frankly. But I don't know. I mean, Fury are a strange one. They've never quite got back to the heights when they had that Henny, you know, lineup. So I don't know. Right, what other roster moves have been going on this week? Let me just scroll through the notes. Jaquinho got released by Fnatic. Not really a surprise, I don't think, overall. He was never going to get back into the team, and honestly, I don't think he did a good job. But this is the problem with accepting narratives that aren't true. People now think Jaquinho is an AWPer. So he's out there in free agency with all the other AWPers you could get, including Nork, by the way, who's just disappeared and no one talks about him anymore. He was fucking sick. He was one of the reasons why NAP were on the come up before the device roster move. Nork's just disappeared. So You know what? Jaquinho needs to make it absolutely clear. I only played AWP because everyone thought it was going to be better than JW AWPing. I was a rifler by trade, and I want to return to that trade. Please give me an opportunity. Because there might very well be some potential there. But if you think about Jaquinho in the context of all the other AWPers you get in free agency, why would you ever pick him up? He did fuck all at Fnatic, and he's been clearly, outclassed and shown up by Smooya since Smooya joined. So
all these players that they've done this to, Jaquinho, Linus, Lucky, they're all going to be fucked. I'm telling you right now. Maybe one of them is the guy who, goes to the right tier 2 team and sort of rebuilds his career and shows he's legit good, blah, blah, blah. The rest of them, this baggage will haunt them for years now.
Yeah. Well, dude, he must be thinking about some of the names I already mentioned, the Disco Dopplins, the Freddy Bees. These were all earmarked. I'm missing out loads of obvious Swedish names as well. Yeah, right. They were all earmarked to be these great players that actually the older generation, so the Fnatic, and LGB guys over there, and obviously Get Right and Forest, they said great things about these players. They gave them opportunities to play alongside them in the teams. They never made the grid. Now, Jaquinho hasn't had the luxury of playing with any of the all-time greats. In fact, well, I mean, obviously, Crims, but he played in a very busted up downward trajectory Fnatic where none of us even know what Golden's been doing or what's going on in that team. So, that's not a great environment for a young player to apply his trade. He did it on a gun that he doesn't normally use. He was stepping in for JW, who, by the way, even though JW, by his own admissions, hasn't played well and is pretty washed up and he's 26 and he doesn't know what he's going to do next, you are still replacing a legend. There's no getting away from that. It's always going to be tough. But, yeah, I don't know. I'd like to see Jaquinho just on one of these, tier 2 teams or siphoned into an academy team. I want to get a look at him with a rifle again before I can make any sort of critical assessments about what his career should look like moving forward, because I don't think we saw enough of him in Fnatic, and I don't think he got a fair shake, frankly.
By the way, there's another thing I'm sick and tired of as well. Fuck these orgs that are just putting players who aren't AWPers on the AWP. What are you doing? It's literally the hardest role swap in the entire game, bar maybe becoming IGL if you've never done it. Nobody's just going to literally walk in the door and be a tier 1 AWPer of world Counterstrike levels. That's not only an unrealistic expectation, but you just spin your wheels when you do it. I don't mind it if you do it for one LAN while you literally just logistically have to sign another player. But the idea that these experiments last months and months, Richard, and as I'm saying, they just bury players' careers by doing this. It's just dog shit.
What else have we got going on? Peacemaker Productions. We already alluded to it. So, right.
What was the point of that whole affair? Because if you think about it, when did he even come in? He only came in around the time that they got coldzera, didn't they? So I think it's only a couple of months ago. I'll look it up, but I'm fairly sure it wasn't that long ago, mate. Let's see. He joined Complexity he joined a while ago. He joined, apparently, according to this, he joined in July. He joined on the 23rd of July. So he's in the team for less than 5 months.
Yeah, he came in sort of at when the lineup started having problems and they needed that extra guy. And then I think he was instrumental in suggesting coldzera, if I remember rightly. But whatever. It's a strange one. I want this on record. I know his reputation precedes him, and we've had a lot of fun with Peacemaker down the years. He's been, in many ways, the fifth Beatle of this podcast. But I don't think he dismantled this team and then pieced the fuck out.
The joke is he's been the fifth player of some of his teams because he just always caught someone, doesn't he? The joke, he should be the sixth player, but he's the fifth because he just caught someone and takes their place.
Yeah.
And also he did have that time he played that game and he just did the mouse wheel job, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, the Complexity had a lot of problems. And it's been that way ever since they didn't let Obo.
Right, here's the thing. I'll do this, okay? I'm with you on the overall concept. I don't think he was the one who ruined Complexity. I don't think he can really be held responsible. If you look at the time he was there, realistically, all that happened when he was there was they got Esatag, then they got coldzera a few months later, and then the team died. And spoiler, the IGL isn't even the fucking IGL anymore. So it looks like across the board that team had massive problems. But I will say the one thing I think he probably does have to take some blame for is if he was involved at all in bringing coldzera in, I think that was a bad move.
Yeah, I mean,
that ain't a desperation play, put it that way.
Yeah, maybe not, but what you're always hoping is that, I mean, what else could they have done at that time? Big name player available on the market for free, essentially, willing to sign to a short-term contract on the proviso they were expecting to go to the major. That obviously didn't work out, so no question about it. It was a flop move. But yeah, tough for me. Everyone seemed really checked out on that team. Like, everyone seemed really checked out on that team. Blame F clearly wasn't vibing the same way, that he was. JKS, I don't even think he ever had a good time on Complexity, frankly. He just seemed to hate every second playing for them, and it was reflected in his stats, which, by the way, listen, all the people, I know the narrative is, him and Blame F play in the exact same positions on every map, so JKS had to change because Blame F is the leader. And fuck all that noise. You still got to frag out. It's that simple. Someone comes on your screen, you shoot them. And he wasn't doing that to the level I know he can do it at. So I feel good criticizing him. But they just never bounced back from having a solid 5. They had problems with poison as well, in and out the team. I mean, you have to remember Complexity spent, when they first bumped into the top 5 in the world, and it suddenly looked like the Juggernaut meme was going to come true, and they could potentially upset anybody. Once Obo left, they went stand in, long-term replacement. Then Poison gets ill, stand in. They used Yugi. Look at the teams they took to tournaments. And I don't know if that's bad management. I don't know if that's bad luck. But at the end of the day...
A bit of everything, maybe.
Yeah, so I'm sympathetic. I think it would make a really interesting story in a documentary. But they should have scrapped the team sooner.
Oh, for sure.
I think, and it would have saved everyone a lot of time. I can't even imagine how much money they wasted on signing Esatag for a week or whatever the fuck it was, and bringing Cold Zero in on a short-term contract because he don't get out of bed unless there's some...
Oh, and by the way, here's the thing fans haven't even thought about yet. Think how silly you look that when Blame F stops being an IGL and him and Config go to Astralis, in their first LAN, they're just tearing everyone up, mate. You could have just had that in your team. You had those players. If you'd have just built the team differently with a real IGL the whole time, this could just be your team. You could just have a better version of the Astralis lineup.
Yeah, I know.
You could have Blade, but you can have everyone else better.
They've been linked with picking up Copenhagen Flames.
Makes sense. Cheap pickup. I will say, though, here's the downside, Richard. This is another reason why I should just put out more videos, mate. I'm too slow sometimes. I wanted to do a video because it'd be like the worst crowd pleaser of all time. The second Flames failed to make top 8 at the major. I even told people, by the way, the reason why this is really sad is because they're never going to do this again. This is a flash in the pan, mate. This is just that one LAN where everything's perfect and you just hit the right... Because you've seen, even on... Dude, go and look now. Online, Copenhagen Flames, win half their games or something, mate. And spoiler, they're not losing the famous teams. They're losing the teams you wouldn't even know the name of. Unfortunately, that one major just seems to have been a miracle run. So to me, I don't know why even that people have to buy the whole team. I'd be buying parts, There's parts maybe could be good, but the whole team, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I mean, but this is what I don't understand. Keep in mind, right? The big thing about Complexity was it had this incredible sort of synergistic relationship in the sense that they get bought by the parent company of the Dallas Cowboys. They have Jason Lake, legendary GM. He's all-American. He's one of the original pioneers. The Cowboys are, America's team. Spoiler, most football fans fucking despise them.
I know that's still the slogan, but that's so out of date at this point in time. You're about 50 years out of date on that one.
Yeah. But whatever. And then you had an international roster that worked in the sense that you also did have young American talent, but big org, big enough. Why would you commit to an all Danish lineup just because it's cheap? One that isn't even in the top 10 in the world. That says to me this project's winding down. Not
that
ramping
sounds like
up.
a min-max to me. It's they're going to be so cheap to buy. If we get anything from them, okay, it's all right. Because obviously the problem is, the contrast is, they obviously did the opposite on the other one, didn't they? If anything, they paid the big money to all those other players, and they never got the results they wanted. So time to go cheap or just leave the game.
Yeah, and it's listen, as I said before, Liquid looked at Roy and Nikodos to join. potentially on the Liquid lineup. They want to stick with this 5. I think ultimately this is going to be very limiting. Like, we're still waiting to find out whether Roy just had a purple patch. Is he actually a legitimate player that can keep doing what he's doing right now? We also don't know his Nikodaz, because remember, he doesn't have a lot of LAN experience, even though he performed really, really well at the major. Is he going to be a consistent talent? We also don't know, as Copenhagen Flames establish themselves as being one of those gatekeeper teams around that, top 15, top 20, right? Well, people are going to start prepping for you. People really underestimated Copenhagen Flames, we were among them. I make no bones about that. But it's like you say, since the major, if you look at what they've been doing in ESEA, it ain't great, guys. Like, they lost the fucking LDLC with Sixer and Hadji, if you remember them. So, and I know it's online, but I'm just saying. So be interesting to see. I think it's a backward step for Complexity. I almost wish they would just hang tight and not commit to a team rather than pick this one up, because I think this is going to be a hiding to nothing. I think 3 months from now they're looking to change parts, and then how do you even do it? How well do you know the Danish scene? We don't even know who's going to replace Peacemaker. Who's going to be the coach?
The sad thing to me is that, as I've told on past episodes, they were one of the teams, one of the orgs, that was in the running for the package that Astralis sold to Vitality. Imagine if that package joins Complexity, right? You could have just kept Essetag, so it could be an all Danish lineup. Basically, you'd just have, in this scenario, you'd probably have to have Magus be the IGL. So you'd have Magus IGL instead of Glaive, and you'd have Essetag instead of Zipnix. You'd have basically a banging lineup. Like, that team could go everywhere. The problem is, I understand they were not cheap players to sign. They want the fucking bag, as is the case with all true Astralis players. But, like, the difference is you'd have mad prospects for them next year. I agree with you. Like, I don't really care about Complexity now, if I'm being honest. Unless they make a team that does something, they're just whatever to me now. And that is a real shame when you consider, if you go back a few, I'm going to say, 8 months ago, they were one of the only teams I was crediting, along with FaZe Clan, G2, the ones that might actually break the bank to make a real top lineup. The ones that aren't the Astralis of the world, wasting your time with players like Lockie and just gaslighting you that he's the next talent. I want the teams that are treating this like sports and trying to win the championship. Complexity sound like they're just trying to keep their foot in the door now and wait a few years to CS.
Yeah. Couple more, and then we'll get on to viewer questions, because it wouldn't be a show without talking about some of our other greatest hits. I saw a headline on HLTV. I had to fucking laugh. Snacks.
Come on.
Snacks to take break from competition.
Always the self-awareness, isn't it? It's always the lack of self-awareness. This is like that one from a few episodes ago where it was like PTR announces withdrawal from it. Is he even alive? Oh, my bad. Fuck it. You know what I mean? It's like one of those moves like, listen, Snacks. Like, I will say, technically, we are all where Snacks exists, because he was in an infamous game that was stolen from him by Device, who felt so bad, and he was the real victim of it. If you remember all the memes, I'm referencing them all now. Obviously, he was in the Anonymous team, but obviously the joke is, aside from that, what the fuck have they done? They're nobody. Like, I get that in online CS, you can have some results that make you seem like something. Like, Snacks hasn't been a relevant player in literally years. He was in that Mouse Sports team in 2018, guys. That's ages ago.
Yeah, that is, and that's one of the worst signings of all time in terms of expense to output. Yeah, I mean, look, I really wanted this Anonymous team to do well. I like Rallen as a player and have for a while. He's getting on in years right now. He's one of the ones that I think's really slipped through the cracks in the Polish scene and didn't quite get the opportunities he deserved. And every time I sort of see him on a lineup, I'm always thinking, oh, it'd be cool if like he just had a couple more pieces around him. But yeah, it never clicked. But players have to stop doing this. Like, first of all, what even is a break within this context? Like, you are being dropped from the team. Are you coming back after a month? Are you not coming back after a month? When you say as well, taking a break from competition, you're not exactly playing at the highest level.
Competition.
Yeah.
Online cops.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so, things like this, just the optics of it just give you cheap jokes. Like, just don't do it. You know, I know you've got to say to the fans, or Snacks isn't going to be in the team right now. You just say Snacks is on the bench. That's it. That's all you have to say. No big statement, no grandiose sendings off. By the way, esports retire. I've had fucking sandwiches that last longer than fucking esports retirements, mate. So, you know, don't ever. If we all come out and do the big fucking fanfare, and you're back next week, you just look like a cunt.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, stop with all these like huge grandiose statements if you're just taking some time out. Just take the time out. You know, you've got a roster, you've got a bench, he's on the bench. That's that. You know, so, and the other one, of course, and I thought this was interesting. We've talked a lot about NIP and sort of where they're at right now and how basically my assessments of them being potential major winners was just hopium cranked up to the max. The crack version of hopium. But Threat has said he will no longer be the head coach and instead is going to ascend into a board-like position where he will be the technical director of Counterstrike. Now, when we talk about coaches in the game, Threat's probably one of those names that actually we don't really talk about enough. Because I think, especially early on in his career, he was one of the coaches that really sort of revolutionized the approach to the game. The idea of being that IGL outside of the server, giving people detailed playbooks, but also helping with mid-round calls, being very, very involved in the tactical approach of the team. He was instrumental in that.
Basically like offensive coordinator.
Yeah, exactly.
From the NFL, people know the premise.
Yeah. Totally. And a lot of people emulated what he was doing. And then that is what sort of led to Valve going, actually, we don't like this.
Yeah.
So he's been hugely influential on coaching in general and doesn't get enough credit for it. But obviously as well, you do have to look through the lens of with this NIP system they keep talking about.
Garbage.
Yeah, which as far as I can tell is just every now and then they'll throw a shit academy player into the lineup and say Syncos win, mate. Which
I can tell their system is just like a rework of Astralis' bullshit PR approach. Instead of actually being good in the game, you just find angles by which you can explain it away. It's the same shit.
Yeah. So it's a weird one for me because this might be an example of an org handling PR right, because obviously the general rule in Counter-Strike is if a team underperforms, the coach always gets it. And Threat's a nice guy and a legend within, you know, an NIP organization for the things that he helped them achieve back with his first stint as a coach. So for me, this might be him essentially being moved upstairs because they don't think he's very good and they want to explore other coaching options. And I don't know how much influence he'll have from a technical director position. I don't even know what that really means within the context of the Counter-Strike team. It also sounds like he might be, because he says it involves all of our Counter-Strike divisions, might sound like they're essentially farming him out to this academy team. It's sort of my read on it, you know, but they didn't want to say that because it looks terrible and they don't want to do him dirty, which is, by the way, admirable. You don't treat legends like garbage. So that's my read on it. It looks to me like they want to see other people. They want to get another coach in because they do think this roster with Esatag can actually succeed if they have a different approach. What's your read on it?
I do think that this team has, like, put it this way, if I didn't know they had a coach, this could be a team that doesn't have a coach. They look like absolutely fucking up and down all over the place all year long. Not even any consistency in terms of which players are going to perform generally, and constantly one or two players that are just massive leaks in the team and just fuck the team, essentially. So I have to say, if that was actually Threat's handiwork, yeah, it doesn't look like he did a very good job, quite frankly. And whether or not they gave him the pieces, he wasn't doing a great job with these pieces. My main problem is this. This is what I'd have to know if there's any redeeming him. I'd have to know if he agreed with the moves they made this year. If he didn't and he was completely hamstrung, and after they gave him the vice, they basically said, look, we're not going to get you any other players. You have to stay with these players only. Well, then, yeah, there's only so much you can do. You can't polish a turd, as it were. But if he himself agreed with the Linus over ZTR move, he agreed with the fucking lineup they had for this year, he agreed with keeping Hampus as they had. If he agreed with all these things, I do think he did a bad job, at least for this team, and probably should be replaced by someone else. else. I don't know who could coach this team. I don't think it's that good a lineup of players in terms of what they're trying to like publicly pretend. Like they're trying to imply they're going for the top spot. Obviously, they're not with this fucking lineup of players. But yeah, I don't think threat. Look, I've always said this. I don't care who you are. At the end of the day, coach and in-game leader are performance fucking jobs. You have to be a very special talent where you can underperform and I still keep you in the team. Like, I don't think, and by the way, Threat has not yet proven himself to be that level of talent, in my opinion. So I think it's justified that he's replaced. Someone else should do the job.
Yeah, and that's fair, and we'll never get to the bottom of it. Bjorn's a pro. He you know, I can't think of him ever talking out of school or like dishing dirt or flaming someone or anything like that. It's just not in his nature. He's like the classic Swede personified, just very cool and level-headed and does his job. Very professional dude. So we'll never know. But my read on it, I think, is based on an interview Hampus did with HLTV. I think these players coming in, it was nothing to do with even the coach. I think it was all coming from upper tier management. Hampus basically said the NIP system means I don't really get a say in who's going to be the fifth on the roster and stuff like that. So there were a few clues contextually to maybe that the org's doing this, and maybe Bjorn didn't agree with it. But anyway, I wish him well. They've kept him on and certainly treated him right. But maybe it is time for a change in coaching to help NIP get to that next level, which, by the way, jury's out whether they still can with this lineup at all. So, there we go. That's all of the news. Let's get into our viewer questions. Obviously, we have a Patreon for the podcast if you want to support it. And if you pay $50 or more, you can ask Duncan and I any question about anything, and we will answer it live. The better the question, the better the answers, generally, is the rule. So Oki with the first question. How long has Richard had repressed fantasies about librarians? Are there any other jobs that fall into this category of freak in the sheets? So you won't understand this reference, but I did a stream recently where I was talking about, like, what do librarians actually do? I've got a friend who's a librarian. Put it this way. Right, during the pandemic, because he couldn't go into work, do you know what they assigned him to do at home when he was working from home? 5 hours of reading books a week.
What a fucking sick job.
That was the best they could come up with. There's nothing else for him to fucking do. And when you assess it like that, then that means, like, well, what do they do when they're in the building? Hello, hi. Yeah, and that's the one. Right? Now, librarians are basically famous for two things, I said, and that one is the shushing, right? Everyone knows that, and you can't do it in FIFA, but you can do it in a library. And straight
says it all, doesn't it?
Straight fire reference. Thanks for that, Sam. That's a gift that keeps on giving. And the other thing librarians are known for, obviously, is that because they're quiet and buttoned down in the thing, they're
spinsters, isn't it?
Yeah. They're obviously, they like to get wild. When, you know, because if you live a life where you sort of have to be repressed for the job and you're in a silent environment, the idea is, you know, sort of as a trope, there's a juxtaposition in your private life. So it's not a fantasy. It's just a trope that I have correctly identified in society.
It's true.
Now, are there any other jobs that fall into this category of freak in the sheet?
Loads.
I've read a number of books, by the way, shit, what was this one called? There's one basically about how wild, like, the 1970s airline crews used to be.
I could imagine.
Yeah, I can't remember. And apparently it was just madness.
I mean, it is implied that people don't know. This isn't just some Hollywood shit. It is implied that at this era, because people don't understand, this is where the Zoomers will never get it, Richard. You basically have to go listen to old Joey Diaz stories if you want to know how different the 1970s were. In the 1970s, in America, you could do stuff like board a plane and pay for the flight on the plane. So, like, Joey Diaz, for example, was just, like, ripping them off and, like, using all shit, like, using checks that were going to bounce when he got there. Because that's the sort of level he's on. And obviously, it goes out saying you could smoke, you could drink excessively. So, if you can imagine in this environment, I'm going to go ahead and guess loads of the fucking air hostesses, which fucking any celebrity, football player, movies. Of course, it goes out saying almost that they'll be into that shit.
But obviously, don't forget as well, like, I mean, you know, the pilots, tons of the fucking male stewards.
Especially when the computer flies the plane. Like, I bet they're all just fucking.
Oh, bro, some of
Whatever
the fucking stories in this book are just mental. You know, I used to know a pilot, a private pilot, who he used to fucking make moonshine in the Middle East in his downtime, like just risking being executed for no reason, for no reason. Just selling moonshine to people in the desert on his days off, and then flying back out like mad cunts. So definitely that is for me. I'll try and find the name of the book, Oki, because I know you're a reg. And get it to you, but there's a book all about it and how mad it is. Like, so yeah, check it out. Reykjavik. Moving on to the next major, we still do not know where it is. So can I throw my hat in the ring for a suggestion? Copenhagen would be a great location, and the crowd is so passionate, they just love yelling wherever Astralis aiming at players through smoke for some reason. So, I mean, look, Copenhagen would have been a straight fire one to do, but if it's going to be like that, I agree with Duncan, it's sort of disqualifying. But then again, obviously, no one really cares about any of that shit in esports. So,
like, here's the thought I even had, Richard, and I genuinely thought this in that moment, right? Are we ever going to be? Is this some sort of mad purgatory where the joke is me and you can never leave? Because the second we're about to leave the fucking esports door, we just hear like some of the usual shenanigans go on, and we're like, "Y'all are going to take care of this while we leave, right?" And they're like, "What are you talking about? We think it's great that this crowd's like this." Like, great. So the whole scene's like this again. So again, like if we hadn't said anything, right, and we weren't doing the show now, would HLTV blow it all up? Would, you know, Jacob Wolf be all over this? Would Ashley Kang, who just won Journalist of the Year, would she be doing, or content creator, whatever? None of them will be doing anything. Spoiler. No one gives a fuck. And in fact, as you said earlier, and you pointed out about how it's only iconoclastic people, the joke is this, you morons. You don't even gain from crawling these things out. You only suffer. You will not be hired by Blast. You will not be hired by certain companies. Certain teams like Astralis will say no to interview. Like, you only lose by doing this. How can we have an industry where you are disincentivized from calling out the really bad things? You can't. The joke is we're fucking propping your scene up right now, and the day we ever leave, it's going to be fucking dark, because your idea, by the way, of the most out there thing is going to be not lightly criticizing team owners on Twitter. That's going to be the most crazy thing that you can ever get. By the way, he's doing a good job doing it, but that's my point, is if that's the limit, the boundary that we're going to go to, these events will be part of the course eventually.
Yeah, I'm gonna turbocharge. No, I'm gonna make him hate. Okay. That's the plan. Before I get out, because obviously I'm washed up myself. I'm a teacher now. It doesn't get more washed up than that, does it? So I'm obviously doing teaching an esports course, and I have to prepare for classes and stuff. But before I do leave and go and write the great esports book, publish all of the match fixing stuff. Definitely still going to do that, and I'm going to make him M&M's. There's a few others. Maybe George can stop writing about Valorant. You know,
doing that thing he does, which I'm just going to call him out for it right now, where he just does that stupid influencer thing, like getting mad at everyone except people who play that joke. Suck my actual nuts, you fucking idiot. You're not an age shot, you know. Also, you have like, he's also doing that thing as well, where he goes like, thanks for 20k. 20k, I'll piss on 20k. I'll go block 20k people after this episode right now just to show you it's nothing, you dickhead. 20k. You make me sick. Anyway, aside from that, he's a good journalist, yeah. I'm keeping it real, isn't it? I'm just keeping it real.
Suck my actual nuts, yeah, I'm keeping it real.
I'm trying to snap him out of it, aren't I? He's at the moment, he's going, yeah, hey, y'all, let's get that bread. Like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, no, it is. I've said it many times on stream. I hate all that influencer shit. I hate how transparent it is. But listen, if you're a journalist, you need the audience, and unfortunately, this Zoomer audience doesn't respect good work. It only respects the influencer hustle. So what do, you know? So I forgive it. I turn a blind eye. If it ever gets really bad, like Theon levels, I'll stage an intervention for George. I'll save him. I'll pull him out of the K-hole. I will. Anyway, what the fuck was the question? Oh, it wasn't even a question. It was just a statement. Yeah, Copenhagen would suck. I don't know where the next major is going to be. The working theory is it's still going to be in Brazil, but, you know, I mean, who even knows?
And the two that I'll never get over, because this is how bad gaslighting has become in fucking esports, is the idea, one, that a major will take place in Brazil, in South America, within the next 6 months. You're out of your mind. Look what's going on in the world right now. I'm in a locked down country, you daft cunts. There's no universe where Brazil's having a major. And then the second one, it's almost as bad, was when ESL had the gall this year to say, like, and we'll be coming back to Australia in 2022. You fucking morons. People in Australia can't even go there, you dumb fuck. Why would you even say that publicly when you haven't got it all squared away? This is so stupid, this scene. It's so stupid.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like, the bottom line is now no one should be committing to anything, right? Because, like, unless you have... No, but this is what I've been saying. Do you know, again...
By the way, we just missed the perfect chance here as well, because there was even news that came out the other day. I almost cried laughing. Well, you know the Blast... Like, whatever, they've got, like, I think the World Finals is in Copenhagen, Richard, but they've had to announce it's a studio-only event.
Yeah.
Oh, bloody want here. Oh, how will I ever handle that? Fucking hell. Has anyone else got a chance now to not get cheated against? No, the joke is, as you're saying, nobody right now can assure you that you can have a LAN. Unless the LAN's happening in 3 weeks, you can't really know what's happening, can you? That's the nature of the world.
But, yeah, exactly. You know, but also this is why, and we missed this trick. All that time we were talking about how big esports was. Anyone get any lobbyists together? Anyone start making inroads with government? Would have really helped us out now, by the way.
We don't even need it because the precedent's there from sports that you can do it. Yeah, you're right. Just no one does it for esports. No one gives a fuck.
Yeah, so whatever. Anyway, Lonnie, with games being ruined by Hunden crowding, should teams be penalised for
That's a good one. I'll give him credit. That's a good line. Hunden crowding.
Should teams be penalised for the actions of their fans?
Oh, well, wait a minute. There's another thing we must bring up on stream.
What?
Have you seen Hunden's Twitter?
Oh,
pull it up. Pull up the Twitter profile right now.
It's
mental. It's like, listen, because I know Hunden. He is not smart and he is not a naturally funny person. So this isn't a joke. For real, his actual profile has a bio that says something mental, like, you know, the comeback is better than the setback. Yeah. First of all, there is no comeback from cheating it's egregiously and then being a cunt. There's no comeback. Secondly, for real, the actual profile picture is a picture of him where it actually says on the picture, fuck them kids. For real. They're not going to believe it until it comes up. They're going to think it's a parody or something. This is his real Twitter account. And by the way, he's posted a picture of himself like being a bartender or something. He really thinks he's going to like turn the corner and keep using this Twitter account. This guy is so off the reservation. It's mental. Like, I saw this and I thought it must be like a troll account. Like, it can't be real.
No. So I downloaded it. I can't find it now. But yeah, obviously bring it up, Sam, while we're talking.
Someone's just brought it up now. Have a quick look.
But listen. I saw that, right? It was a picture of him. It was a picture of him behind a bar, like shaking up a cocktail with a fucking bow tie on.
Oh.
And he'd posted it on his Instagram and someone had screenshot it. And it said, like, # new beginnings. Like, mate, that would be
I can't handle it.
That would be like, so imagine if, like, I don't know, Bill fucking Belichick or something's like, fucking new beginnings. What a twist. Like, this fucking mental. That's like, in the context of sports, rock bottom.
It's the profile picture law.
Rock bottom is what that is.
Remember, you actually did, for real, exploit an autistic kid to try and entrap him into a crime. And then your banter profile picture is like, haha, fuck them kids.
I know.
Holy shit. The levels of self-awareness on this guy are unbelievable.
I tried to explain to people that how far gone Hunden
proof of life on Hunden. Is he even still alive, or is it just Nicola and Ion wearing a fucking spitting image mask just running around Denmark doing all this shit? Like, it's gone too far.
No, he still believes. So he still believes that this was the biggest scandal of all time in esports. It wasn't even the biggest scandal that week. He believes that, like, he's the victim still. That Heroic betrayed him. Dude, I don't know what to tell you. You know, it's like he is gone. Like, you know, I've seen a lot of people lose their box, like in obviously the pandemic, the isolation, suddenly having restrictions placed on your life. You get a hobby, you're on the internet all the time, and, you know, increase social media. What's your hobby? I'll just check out what's happening in the American media landscape. And I've seen so many people lose their minds. I've never seen anything like this. This guy is out. This guy's out to fucking lunch. And it's like you said, mate, he did it for an event recently as well. Literally, like, posted a poll. Who's gonna win, guy? Like, nobody cares about your fucking opinion anymore about this game. You are a fucking convicted cheater and liar, right? As Duncan says, you tried to manipulate a vulnerable young person to try and take everyone down. All the people that put their trust in you. You've ruined the reputation of an organization. Like, you're not coming back, bro. You are not coming back. I'm telling you. No one will ever have Hunden back again. No one. Right. Anyway, to answer the question, should teams be penalised for the actions of their fans? No. That would be a bridge too far. The tournament, it's like we said at the start of the show, tournament organisers got to get a handle on it. And they have the TO needs to be responsible for the behaviour of the crowd. What I would say is, I would like to see a team take a stand. I would love to have seen a team just be like, right, we're not playing until this crowd's brought under control. I'd like to see that. Sort of the way, footballers deal with like racist chants. You just walk off the pitch, fuck it then. You're going to be cunts. We're not going to fucking play. And it's you's going to get fined. And it's you's going to have points docked. So how you like them fucking apples? It's why I always respected Kalina. He wasn't just a straight fire ref. He was a good human being. I remember him fucking basically stopping a game. Can't remember which player it was getting racially abused in Italy, and he's just like, we're not doing this. So all of this has got to fucking stop. Off you come. He did it as the ref. That's what I mean. That's how, like, you have to approach people trying to cheat. It's not fair to do it to the teams. You're only human. If someone shouts and you hear it, what you gonna do? Not shoot? But it just shouldn't be happening in the first place. Jerky's Minion. What do you think of fans who boo players after the games are over? Well, I imagine me and Duncan are aligned. I have no problem with that whatsoever. I have no problem whether it's a home team. I mean, I'm a Newcastle fan. I'm familiar with booing my own fucking players because we've got a squad that couldn't even get out the fucking championship now. But, I think if you pay your ticket, you earn your right to express dissent and distaste. People were saying with the blasting, don't boo players when they're trying to give interviews, and they cited that famous Taz example where Taz came out and said to the Polish contingent of fans in Cologne, this is a legendary team, show them respect. That's all well and good. I don't think it's a given. I think if a crowd dislikes you for any reason, boo, it's not like they're pelting you with rotten fruit. It's not like fucking you're in the stocks and it's medieval times. Just suck it up. Not everyone's going to like what you do or who you are or how you handle yourself in the media. It might not be fair, but it's the reality of it. And if I pay a ticket out and cathartically I need to boo some cunt, I'm all about that shit. So I've always been consistent on that. I remember it was big in League of Legends one year, wasn't it, Duncan, where during the Cloud9 game, didn't some home fans like boo a Chinese team or a Korean team? And basically everyone was going, this is a disgrace to the sport. Shut the fuck up. Crowds get to boo. If I'm paying $80 to come to an event for a weekend, I'm doing what I want. Shut the fuck up.
I think it's perfectly fine to boo. My point earlier when I referenced Carrigan and Shocks was what it implies about the crowd. It's this. Here's the problem. You don't hate Carrigan because he's the rival or IGL. You hate him because you don't know him and you're stupid enough to not think he has nothing to do with Astralis. You don't hate Shocks because he's the main rival of the... No, you hate him because he's not Danish. He's not in Astralis. To me, it's just what it implies about you that's whack. To actually boo is totally fine. I even think in that setting, that's why I don't think Alex did pre-think it. Because that wasn't actually the best moment to do it in. By the way, you are allowed to boo. You're a dickhead if you do. I can have that opinion. But I think absolutely, yeah. Within this context, it's why I actually think that whole topic is probably one of the most nuanced topics. And we'll never get to the bottom of it because everyone who's in favour of it is just ubiquitously in favour of the idea you're allowed to cheat because you paid. And everyone who's against it just thinks shut it down. But to me, one of the problems here is our sport, is that we're in a sport where on the one hand, we want people to react, but on the other hand, if they react in a certain way, it does ruin the competitive integrity of the sport. It's one of the most difficult balancing acts I think you can have. That's why I gave the example of those two sports. Tennis and golf are ones that have cracked it. Now, I will say, bad news for us is they tend to be sports that are considered more upper class sports, or they had a different. So there's almost a concept of etiquette. Whereas what we're talking about here is more in line with football. It's the idea that if you just go and you're some little shit who's 16 years old, you pay your ticket. Yeah, you could boo Shocks all you want, mate. That's fine for you if you want. I personally would just rather you did it for a legit reason. But again, you can do what you want. You paid.
Yeah, I mean, for like Shocks missed the trick there. He should have gone Snoop Dogg at the 1995 Source Awards where that whole death row beef was going on. Y'all got no love for Snoop Dogg. And he's boom. We're gonna murk you. That was some fucking straight fire shit. But it was stupid. I don't know why you can't just give a player like Shocks that like a modicum of respect.
By the way,
I'm never going to throw my toys out the pram about someone getting booed.
I just realised, I was saying to you before we started this episode that the real problem they have in Astralis is when they're telling you all these lies, they don't even have a good liar to sort of sell the lie to you. They need someone with charisma. You've just nailed it for me. What they should unironically do in Astralis is have Suge Knight be their PR guy and have him explain to me why all these players are playing or not playing. Here's the thing, I'd be somewhat inclined to believe Suge compared to you guys.
Chingu says, at what point do you reevaluate an IGL's ability to read the game? I think the most telling aspect of IGLs are basically it's in the choke. So this is when I question the IGL. So it can go. This is the typical one. You get to you've got an 11-4 lead, right? Or and then you lose pistol, and then you lose sequentially a ton of rounds. Or you get to 15, and you suddenly start giving up a ton of rounds. What that says to me, even though I get the context that CT halves and T halves are very different beasts, what that says to me is that you don't really have a plan B. Because when two IGLs going up against each other in that moment, little things happen in games, like there's tells, like sort of like in poker, like if they flash over here and it's done with this amount of time left on the clock, it's actually a fake and they're going to go over here. And really intelligent IGLs start to read this. They start pushing and pulling people around the map. They start reacting to what's going on. And when they start stringing rounds together, the IGL like great example is the Glaive play against Virtus Pro at Atlanta, where they just did that main rush. It come out of nowhere. They were on essentially a force buy. If they lost, it might go to OT. The stakes couldn't have been higher, and they just called a dry rush out of main on train to fucking basically win it. And it's like, you've got to have at least, I would say, 3 just utter wild cards, bonkers tactics that can be the difference maker when your other IGL foil starts figuring you out. If you don't have that, you're not going to win those close series. And so for me, when I see, like, this is why actually, I'm not saying we're there yet, but yeah, this OG team has made me question Alexi B a little bit, because he's a prime example. When you think about how many choke results they've had, how many 16-14 wins and defeats they've had, he has a playbook, and that's that. And if anyone ever gets to see his notes, he's losing that game. There's got to be more. And so that for me is the secret to the great IGLs.
What was the question again?
When do you reevaluate an IGL's ability to read the game?
Right, okay. Definitely choking's a factor, because it does imply that essentially, like put it this way, to be a true champion in a great IGL, you've got to be able to win. So if you choke when you're in those scenarios, you're probably not going to win very often. I would say another factor is, here's the thing. It's really hard to tell how good an IGL is when they have, under the amount of talent they need. Anytime you have clearly enough talent and your team can't be as good as they should be, you have to immediately question the IGL. You just look at some of the talents that you've had around and you go, what have you done with that? It's one of the reasons why I personally have always had a soft spot for MSL that other people don't have. I go yeah, but what talent was he working with? Especially those last few years, where they're all mad harsh. He did nothing with North. You mean the North, where his best players were Cadian or something? What are you talking about? What fucking players was he supposed to make into the best in the world? Whereas the difference is, I at least understand the haters of Carrigan, because the haters of Carrigan can say, but look at the FaZe Clan lineup he had. Now, I will say, say the context I'd shared into that is, okay, well then let me know which international lineup you like that did win the major. Spoiler, it never happened ever, you fucking idiots. But at least that's like a fact. At least you can say maybe he didn't use all those players the best, or maybe he didn't get the right wins out of them. That's an angle you can do it from. So yeah, I would say there's another fact. It depends on what talent you're working with, because I have a lot of leeway for people who just don't have the talent. And like, again, you can't make them. You're only an IGL. You're not a miracle worker.
Yeah, exactly. So next question. Right, Watch Doge asks, which tier 1 CS pro would have the most based Spotify Wrapped, and which one would have the most cringe? So for those who don't know, if you don't have Spotify, what it does is at the end of the year, you get this thing called Wrapped, where it says these are all the songs that you listen to the most. These are how many hours you listen to this artist. These are your top songs, essentially. So who do I think has the best taste in music?
Here's the problem. First of all, we can literally dismiss everyone from the CIS region, because I can tell you right now, they all just listen to really bad American rap music. Like, remember, this is a weird thing people don't know. I've known some people from Eastern Europe who told me, apparently when people sing, it gets way harder to actually understand what they're saying, because obviously you change what you do to fit the lyrics and stuff. So I would imagine, unfortunately, it's like that story I've told many times about how years ago, Cooler once told me like Transformers 2 was his favorite movie or something. Because the premise is he's not watching it like we are. He's watching it like just like semi-scoffed English, and he's just watching it in the cinema going, yeah, good movie, I guess, and then going back to playing Quake. Like, he's not really sitting back like having a screening of it, like, yeah, so what does it refer to, the Galvatron? Like, he's not doing all that, is he? Like, so anyway, I would basically say avoid the Eastern European ones. You've been bad. Like, if you ever look at Simple, he's like some terrible music, mate. So I'm gonna have to think who could actually have a legit one. Here's the thing. Somehow, I'm trying to think of people. I'll be as, listen, I'll tell you straight up. I'm going to be really biased to people who I think are intelligent and therefore might listen to quality music. Like, I'll give you an example. I think it's not impossible someone like Valde might listen to real music, real like rock bands or something, not just some garbage pop stuff. I think there'd be a lot that'd have dog shit taste, if I had to guess. Most of them would have pretty bad taste.
Surely Shocks is straight fire.
The problem with Shocks is, France is like, they're too close to that Euro trash zone where he could just be into some sort of like...
No, there's no way he's into that. There's no way he's into that.
I believe, obviously, Shocks is listening to, like, Frank Sinatra or something cool, or something a little bit of... But I don't think he's probably just listening to nonsense, isn't he, No, because it's the worst thing. Shocks is all emotional. He's probably listening to like Sarah McLachlan unironically or something like, "On the wings of an angel." Like, he's probably fucking off his rocker completely, isn't he? He's probably like Lady in Red Eye singing all the classics, of course.
Someone in chat says he loves Tom Waits. If that's true, that's baller.
Then he wins. Then he wins immediately.
Definitely. Gonna be a sad day when he goes. Who would have the most cringe?
Shocks, of course. Shocks.
I meant Tom Waits.
Shocks for me, but yeah, I know.
Just to clarify, I am talking about the guy who's nearly 80 and not a beloved Counterstrike player. So yeah, who'd have the most cringe? I'll just roll back the years.
And could probably be in there. He probably has some garbage fucking Brazilian music that's just really bad. So I'd imagine.
If Smoothie doesn't listen to like happy hardcore or them rappers who just say the letter B.
Don't worry, I can tell you.
I bet you just listens to that shit.
Smoothie is one of those people who unironically listens to all the like Lil Nas X type garbage music, mate, for real. Like, put it this way, I won't listen. This isn't like dropping dime. It's not some mad secret that you're not allowed to mention. One time, I was in a car being taken, a shuttle from an event being taken back to our accommodations, and they were playing like Post Malone or something. And Smoothie did ask for the music to be turned up. I'd have said off, personally, but wrong end of the dial on that one for me, you Smoothie.
First sock, is there anything to this lucky as a rifler? Or is it just bullshit?
Fuck you, you even asked that question, you piece of shit. How dare you? How actually dare you take a nonsense imaginary talking point that was conjured up in an Astralis boardroom and bring it to this show in good faith as though it's a real crowd? What do you think it's real? Yeah, and I also think that Bobski's is going to get to play because he's got a 10-man lineup, you daft cunt. Fuck you. Buy Astralis stock. Put all your money into Astralis stock. Literally, cash out grandma's fucking pension, get all your kids' fucking college fund, cash out all those shit coins you got, put all your money in Astralis stock, and I hope you're bankrupt tomorrow, you piece of shit. But no, actually, I just don't believe it. That's all. It's all right, First Sock. I just don't believe it's true.
Right, we've got two other questions that I'm skipping submit other ones. The Bear, Detlef Insomniac, those are brain melters and silly. So resubmit, please. We'll do 2 from your next episode. Echo asks, if money wasn't a factor, where would you go and what would you do? If money wasn't a factor, I'm off grid, personally. I like the idea of like a cabin in Alaska where about 10 miles down the road, there's like one of those bars that's just a converted trailer with 2 beer pumps and a bunch of scotch on the shelves. And there's about 50 people live there. And even though everyone knows everyone else, they all just mind their own fucking business. And, you know, I'm just going to wait this fucking thing out.
I definitely
Existence,
wouldn't, in
is.
any context beyond the internet or public figure in any regard whatsoever. There are only downsides come with that now. I would just say, if money was no object, listen, I'd still do some things I do now. Like I might actually do some work in esports, but I would rather do a lot of it off camera or just in private. You know, I'm just so sick and tired of the boring garbage that comes along with having to be a public figure. You know, it's just garbage, isn't it? It's just trash.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just like, you know, because when you say it like that, it sounds like we do this for money, which we definitely don't. And certainly there would be better ways to make money, and certainly we could have made more money from this by saying very different things to what we do. But for me, it's like, I don't know. I always legitimately felt that, like, if I hadn't got into esports, I would have probably tried to go and fix something else. That's kind of like my mindset about, you know, if I'm part of something, I want it to be as good as it can possibly be. But honestly, like you say, the public figure aspect of it, how diseased everyone is on the fucking internet now, like everyone's just crazy all the time, like just 24 hours non-stop craziness, shit that doesn't make sense, wild cognitive dissonance and inconsistencies in logic.
Even this whole crowd thing was like that, mate. It was just people with Danish names. What about sports? So they're supposed to cheer for Vitality. It was just, like you say, it was just cognitive. It was like a million Kathy Newmans just replying to everything you say.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's you know, it just sucks. So if I had the money, like I'd just go and retire somewhere, I guess. I don't have retirement levels of money yet, as in fuck you, I'm out totally. But you know, I'm extricating myself. I'm getting close to what I need to do that, and I think one day it'll just be like that, you know. Anyway, Carv. Now that the dust has truly settled on the major, what were the standout moments of gameplay from that event? No graffiti news from... This is a serious question from Carb. What the fuck's going on? No graffiti news from Valve, obviously, but what iconic moments... Oh, no, here we go. Of hiding behind a box and shooting someone in the back with an MP5 stick in your mind. Perhaps the pros are saving it for the next ESL major. Not bad. He took it there. So, yeah, look, for me... I'm trying to think. I mean, like, because I saw a lot of people who don't really seem to understand what the graffiti's for. And it's obviously to celebrate these legendary players, but not just legendary players. There's like little Easter eggs and stuff on certain maps as well. But in general, to put graffiti, people were going like, Navi streak on Nuke means there should be a Navi. It was a 20 map streak. It's not even the best streak of all time.
Oh, a lot of people missed the
point. That logo should be on Nuke. Nuke should be called Navi, not DE Navi. Like
the other one as well, and there was even broadcast talent saying this, dude, is they wanted to have a graffiti which would be simple, killing Nico in that scenario when it was like 15-12 or whatever, and he came around that call like, why would that be a graffiti? What? Like, yeah, again, I don't think you guys get the premise. Like, the premise is, it's like an iconic moment that, like, the idea, the genius of it is if you do it well, the second you see the graffiti, you know what it means. You know what I mean? Like, well, how would these moments work? So I'm trying to think if there even would be one in this tournament. Probably not, if I had to guess. I mean, listen, let me think. What would you even do? No, because the problem is I can't think of one that comes to mind. So to me, if it doesn't come to mind, there probably isn't an obvious one. I don't think this major had one.
Yeah, I mean, because like that, let's just go over. You've got the jumping up, Cold Zera, obviously all off the fire defuse. The boost is in. Simple FPL. Doja grenade. Is that it?
Let me think. So it's Cold Zera, all off.
Oh, yeah, 4 ops mid, Fnatic.
Oh, there's that one as well. Yeah, that's it then. There wasn't many, if you remember. They stopped ages ago.
You know, I mean, first of all, this also implies Valve even. Oh yeah, we'll update a map for you with the graffiti. That's probably not happening.
I don't think they're ever going to do it again. The problem is that I just don't think for this particular major there was one. I said it before.
No, I don't think
the major itself wasn't actually that great in terms of the gameplay. Understandably, everyone was rusty. No one had been to lands in ages. It was mega pressure. Everyone was shitting themselves on stage. The real problem is Na'Vi were too dominant, so they never had a key moment that really stood out like that. And then everyone else, it's just hard to, like, for example, if I went to watch the games, I've no doubt I could find a round where Nico got like 3 kills with a deagle that probably won them a key round. I just can't remember off the top of my head, so probably doesn't deserve its own graffiti.
Yeah, and like I say, while I understand it certainly meets the criteria of being an iconic moment, the Nico miss, I don't want us to start celebrating, like incorporating, like that'll haunt Nico for a long time. Can you imagine if every time he loaded up Nuke, there was like,
I think it's unfair.
on the sign on Nuke above her.
Remember, you weren't supposed to win that game.
Yeah.
So what if you failed with that? Like, put it this way, I obviously wouldn't want this as a graffiti, but it would be more applicable to have like Carrigan choking on like Inferno. That would be more appropriate. At least he was supposed to win the game, and he did essentially fuck it up, right? So no. And my problem is like, there's nothing too crazy that should stand out. It's like I said, the obvious ones are the ones from past events. Like there should obviously be one for Stu 2K on Inferno. That was a super key moment. There should be one for Device for that pistol round he had against NRG. That was a mega where he had the 3 kills and 3 headshots in 3 bullets with the USP. Yeah. These are ones that, because I can remember them instantly. So I don't think this major had one, I'm afraid, mate.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that's all the questions. So we'll wrap up the show. Back to our normal schedule now. Just a few things. Over the course of Christmas, I'm now free and clear of all my working commitments. So I will be doing, I think it's going to be like a daily video I'm going to do for Dessert or covering IEM Winter, just giving hot takes about what happens over the course of the day. You can check those out on the Dessert or CSGO YouTube channel. I'm also going to be streaming, going to be starting the Christmas Football Manager streams are here. They're going to be upon us, and you don't want to miss those ones. This is the most ridiculous Football Manager save I've ever done. So that should be coming at you tomorrow. And obviously, shout out to the sponsors of this podcast. So, NordVPN, our VPN sponsor, go to nordvpn.com/RLS. And, of course, as well, our peripheral sponsor, SteelSeries, ! SteelSeries in the chat. I'm telling you, there's some good deals on. I just did a Black Friday promotion with them as well. The Prime Gear is sick. It's what I use. If you want to get 10% off anything this Christmas, you go to the SteelSeries store, you put in my name as the code with no space, Richard Lewis, all one word, 10% off anything you choose to purchase for you or your loved ones. And of course, shout out to the patrons that brought the podcast back from the dead. Our $100 patrons, Jerky's Minion, Michael, Benakagi, Carv, Cathal, Cred, J-Dubs, Marcus Kiyumpa, Tobias Bernasconi, Will the Weed Wrangler, and our $50 patrons, Adam Ox, Alex C, A Rama, BP420, Bacon, Bitcoin Cash Podcast, Canapacito, Chronic Alcoholic, C-Mac, Dancer Master, Echo, Fursock, Goody Woody, Gerhan Kaya, John P, J Ray, Judas, Miss Alcoholic, Nolan, Atarian, Reykjavik on Steam, Sard Sawar, The Bear, Tim Frost, Lonnie, Watchdodge, Zumba, and Zarathenia. That was by the numbers. We'll see you sometime next week. Until then, take care of yourself.